pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021. This is the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors meeting at the Mitchell County Courthouse. Before us, we have an agenda. The only thing that we have that might be different is David will not be here to discuss on the county garage, but a couple others will be. One is right here now. So other than that, is there any other issues with it, Rachel? Okay, we have a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Jim's made a motion. Todd has made a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Approve the minutes of the February 16th meeting and the claims. Hopefully everybody read the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Mark has made a motion.
I'll second that.
Mike has seconded. Roll call. Todd.
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
Jim.
Aye.
Mike. Aye. Smolik, aye. So the meeting minutes and the claims have been approved. County Attorney General discussion. Mark, are you out there?
Yes, I am.
I will let you have the floor.
The only thing I have this week is both Mark Ross and the Sheriff's Department went out and looked at Mixed Place. They said it's not perfect, but they think it's in compliance now with the zoning ordinance, so I'm going to consider that matter concluded unless anyone else has some comments.
I don't hear anybody saying anything, so I guess I believe that if the sheriff is happy with it and Mark Ross is happy with it, I'm happy with it. Is there any other discussion on that?
I would not say that they're happy with it, but I would say that it is now in compliance with the zoning ordinance. Like I tell people a lot of times, there's a big difference between a mess, a nuisance, and a violation of the county ordinance. So things can be a mess, but they're not necessarily a violation of the law.
So what do you take a look again in 30, 60, 90 days or something like that? Or do you just wait for another complaint before you look at it again if it's that close?
I would say 95% of the time these nuisance things are complaint driven. It's not like Mark drives around or the sheriff drives around looking for it. It's when someone calls it in to Mark or the sheriff. Would you agree, Mark?
He's not here right now. The sheriff is.
Well, he's on. He's online, it looks like, but that's okay. He can comment later if he wants.
Here he comes. He's happy. He thumbs up.
Okay, good. That's all I have.
Okay, Mark agrees, and thank you.
Thanks.
Sheriff?
So we just had a few weather-related issues on Sunday. Not a big deal for us. 5 or 6 in the ditch, so take some time to get those people pulled out and on their way. But otherwise, we're good over there. Mark touched on Konski's property. We'll continue to monitor that. But he's right; it's complaint-driven, and so if we get some more complaints, then we'll take a second look at it. But otherwise, I don't have anything more. Unless you guys have questions or anybody has comments for me.
Sheriff?
Are you running shorthanded?
We're down 1. Yep. And I can give you some information on that, Todd. It's a personnel matter, so we'll do it one-on-one, or we'd have to go to closed session. Okay. So I'll just update you at the conclusion of today's meeting. Is that okay?
Yeah, well, absolutely. I just noticed there was an advertisement for...
Yeah, and I think maybe you were gone on a medical, maybe you had some surgery when that took place, so I'll bring you up to speed.
Okay. Thank you.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anything else for the sheriff?
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. Moving on, county engineer update.
Few things for you. We talked about equipment and putting an auction together, this week. We contacted conservation. I don't know that anything came out of that contact as far as what parts they may want. One additional piece of equipment we'd like to probably see on that auction is that older DOT bucket truck. The bucket doesn't function properly anymore. In fact, it randomly will want to tip, and I don't think that's a safe thing. Sticking money into that piece of equipment probably isn't worth our time anymore for how old it is and what we've got to do to it to kind of keep it safe. You can't run the controls from the bucket. You got to run it from a secondary position, and just if it's functioning that way, I think we should probably just send it down the road, and if we need to, find something different later on. We use it mainly for cutting larger trees over the right of way. So we do have a smaller bucket truck that we use for signage that we have been using. It's not the best piece of equipment for reaching high, but it does do what we need it to do for a small amount of time. We can kind of keep our eyes open for something different for in the future, but I don't see the need to keep that around anymore if it's that unsafe, I guess.
Yes,
So-
I think it's an injury hazard waiting to happen.
So we can always just, if you guys are okay with it, throw that on that auction block too. Kind of keep things fresh.
I was at a meeting of conservation, they indicated they could use a dump truck like that. You just have parts for a dump truck, or you got,
Well, we got another Ford they can,
well, they got a Ford, they.
yeah, they got it from us.
Yeah,
So,
you have a Ford that operates,
yeah, well, yeah, we do. I guess we don't use it very often, and we sold them that one a year or two ago. I
Is
talked
this
to,
one that you're gonna get rid of also?
what's that?
Is this one you're gonna get rid of also?
Yeah, I talked to Adam. He didn't indicate that.
You didn't, you just told me it was on their list.
Well, they were looking, I think, for something newer. I guess I can talk to him again.
Okay, maybe, I don't know what you got,
So, I can talk to Adam again.
but needed items, so.
One other thing before we get into project stuff, we got a letter, a request for, that accident that happened on 465th in Kirkwood. The fatality accident, the insurance companies are asking if we can forgive our claim of $200 to replace a stop sign, in an effort to put that money towards the family. I thought before I would forgive anything, I'd talk to the board and see if you guys are okay with whether we continue our claim to recoup our $200 costs for replacing the sign, or forgive that.
I think we can go without it. I think we're okay.
I tend to agree, but I thought before we did anything, and I think I talked to Mark. Mark, you there yet?
Apparently Mark is not on there.
Okay. So I did talk to him.
I'm here.
Oh.
I'm here. It just takes a while for my microphone to turn on.
Are you?
I talked to Mark before I brought it to you
Okay.
guys, and he thought maybe it'd be best if you guys knew about it and kind of gave me your input on whether we should do that or not, so.
Well, I see three of us are okay with it. How about Marcus, okay, Todd?
Okay.
It sounds like consensus is all for the family getting that.
Okay.
Do we have to have a motion
No,
on that?
no, I don't think so. I think it's just a matter of we'll just ignore the invoice and we'll do it that way. I'll respond to him by email saying we'll forgive that and we'll move on. It's a small $200 bill. And then we're getting our final loads of salt in, or getting our final round. I think we've got another 1,000 tons left to put in the salt shed, and we'll be having our complete stockpile for the winter. Hopefully winter's on its way out of here, so. You guys got any operation questions before we go to projects, or? Okay. So the next thing that we have on the agenda is to discuss the Hickory and Kirkwood projects, and WHPS submitted us some numbers for, the request 2 weeks ago was can we fit a 22-foot wide road in the existing corridor and still make it work? And I'll let Scott take over from here to explain to you. He did bring some estimates together for a 22-foot wide road with 2-foot shoulders, either asphalt or concrete. And so the existing top that's there now, just to keep in mind, we did find a set of plans buried somewhere deep, for when that macadam base and rolled stone top was put in, and it was a double seal coat layer, and then it was, I think, 3.5 inches of asphalt put on it. That existing top was, at the seal coat time, was 26 feet wide total. I think adding the 3 inches of asphalt maybe narrowed it up to, I guess, maybe 25. I mean, with the repose of the asphalt, you can only lose a few inches on either side, so maybe 25.5, or depending on how vehicles are pushing shoulders out. It's just the surveys showing anywhere from an existing, from the grass line to grass line, about what, 26, maybe 27 feet total top. So I'll let Scott kind of inform you a little bit. The numbers are obviously lower if we're pulling out the subdrain, changing the aggregate base a little bit, narrowing the pavement up. The pavement, you know, is about, I don't know, I'd say more than 50% of the costs of the project to start with. I know there was concerns about whether to replace all the culverts or not. We can look at that. The one thing I want to say before we get into the discussion is, I've had a conversation with the DOT on our farm to market funds, and the way things were budgeted and the way things are programmed, we were going to utilize our farm to market funds where we wouldn't lose any funds. We need to have a project let before June, or we will start losing our farm to market funds. So we either, and I told you 2 weeks ago that you guys wanted Foothill pulled out of the project, and I'll pull it. But keep in mind, if we don't pay something, we could stand, we'll lose our next quarterly payment of, it could be around $220, and we'll lose the next quarterly unless we let something between the next quarter. So we could, if things take a long time, if we don't let something by June, we'll lose our $220,000 check for the last quarter of the year, whatever that is. I don't know exactly what that is. We're just using it averages because we average about $870,000 a year. And then possibly whatever that COVID relief money was that like $70,000? We're at just a tick over 3 years accumulated, which is fine until the fiscal year ends in June. If we want to make a project letting by June, we have to have final plans in by March 16th, I think it is. So just keep that in the back of your heads as we go through the discussion. Because I don't want to lose funds. I don't think anybody else wants to lose farm market funds.
Is that gonna be a problem getting it done by March 16th?
Depends on what project we're going with. I mean, I'll let Scott take over and we can have the discussion when we're done here.
I need to read something first before we do that, so I talked to the county attorney, and I need to read this because I want to be part of this discussion. So, WHKS has done work for Mitchell County for over 40 years. They used to be called Wallace and Holland. My son is an engineer for WHKS. He started in about 2015. I have over 45 years experience working for the Mitchell County Secondary Road Department. 17 of those 45 years I was involved with road design and as being the assistant to the engineer. Because of my knowledge with road design, I feel it is beneficial to Mitchell County taxpayers for me to be involved in discussion of WHKS projects. I will abstain from voting on any WHKS related projects. So I need to have that as a disclosure.
Okay. I'll also disclose from WHS is David, his son, does not work on any of these projects in Mitchell County. So that's how we want it that way too. So there's no conflict or anything like that. So that's from WHS standpoint. So okay, I'm going to do a little bit of review. Originally, the project that we did, 24 foot wide PCC with all the things we had in the preliminary set of plans was a little bit over $5.1 million. I'm just going to talk about Kirkwood. Hickory's a little bit smaller, and we can do some generalizations about how everything is done on that. But so at the last meeting, we sort of talked about what would happen if we changed it to a 22 foot wide PCC road with 2 foot granular shoulders, changing out the base material from a modified subbase to a special backfill. That would allow us to get rid of the longitudinal subdrain. So what we're looking at are cost savings that we can do. And then we also looked at not putting aprons on the pipe, so still replacing the pipes, because if you're putting out new pavement, I would recommend highly that you do the pipes, because we don't want to be patching it 2 years if there's a failure. So basically, when we made all those changes, it comes in at about $4.3 million. So approximately, let's say 800,000 in cost savings to narrow up the pavement and get rid of some of the different types. Another question we had was, well, what about if it was an HMA project? So basically, still using the 22-foot wide, basically all the same characteristics, the same changes that we had for the 22-foot wide PCC. So basically what we did is we took the 7 inches of PCC, went into the design charts and worked our way backwards to get to the HMA thickness. And so basically an equivalent thickness for the HMA to a 7-inch PCC was 9.5 inches. So basically then we did a new cost estimate with that instead of the PCC. Basically everything else was the same, and that comes in at just about $4.2 million. So approximately the HMA initial benefit is about $100,000 over the PCC.
And I'll interject there that depending on what oil prices do with binder, it could throw, I mean, they estimate $500 a ton per binder. It could be a lot more than that by time letting hits, just, you know, looking at trends, it could be. There's a lot of what ifs, but just one number in that binder is one item that could change the whole cost of the project, so. Just as an interjection.
Yep, HMA is highly volatile, changing with the prices of oil. So really, to me, it's right now it's pretty much a wash right now between if you went with PCC, HMA as far as the initial cost. That's just the basis of the cost of the asphalt and the binder. Probably in the long term, you're looking at more maintenance with HMA, more regularly scheduled maintenance to make sure that the pavement lasts for 50 years. So if you were looking at a long-term cost, I would say the concrete would be slightly cheaper than the HMA. We didn't go into a big analysis because the guidelines is 124 pages long, because we'd have to start looking at user costs, downtime, work with Rich to see what are the maintenance, make sure you're doing the maintenance. So I would say right now, probably a little bit cheaper to go with the asphalt, or with the concrete. Sorry. The other thing we want to look at that was a concern was the purchase of the right-of-way along both sides of the project. As Rich said, you know, the basic top now is 20, we said 26 feet. Basically, all the force slopes out there are 2 to 1. Basically, what we would want to do is make that 3 to 1. We may be able to do some public interest findings or some design exceptions to change that, but because what we're having to do is as you start to flatten out those slopes, you're starting to push out into the right of way. So along the entire project, we probably cannot fit everything within the existing right of way. Now, that's without doing a lot of modifications to the ditches. We may have to raise some ditches. I mean, there'd be a lot of stuff that we'd have to look at doing. But you may be 2 or 3 feet out into there in some areas along the entire corridor. So can we modify the sections to do it? Yes. You may decrease the capacity in the ditches that you have. You may not have as much snow storage in the ditches that you have, but is it doable? It is doable with a little bit of work to figure out what we can do. As we get into the culvert areas, that's probably the more concern where you may need, would probably need some right of way because we're not going to be raising the flow lines in the culverts. They're going to have to be extended to meet the new force slopes if we don't do a design exception for the force slopes. And the design exception is basically going to be a determination by the Iowa DOT, local systems, is if they want you to, if we meet the benefit cost ratios or anything like that that's out there. So it can be done. It would take a little bit more design work to be able to do that, to figure out where we need to put the ditches, how we can do that. But in the long and short of it, we probably cannot stay within the existing right-of-way based on the existing conditions of the road. Are there other things we could do? We could look at lowering the road, because as you lower the road, that gives you some more space, your top widens out. So could you lower it a foot? But then you need to start to look at how that affects, drifting and all that type of stuff, entrances to fields and driveways. But, I mean, it's doable to do, but it's still gonna be in that 4 $4.1 to $4.2 million for construction. Going to the 22-foot wide with, and only a 2-foot shoulder, so it's basically what you have out there for a total top width. So, that's what we were able to determine in the last couple weeks.
And I know, Jim, you were talking about culvert replacements and things like that. That's probably, I think material costs are probably, if I did the numbers properly, we're looking at, out of the project cost, that's maybe around $100,000 of the project cost. So, I mean, there's, if pipes need to be replaced or don't need to be replaced, I mean, there's some cost savings there. That's, you know, $100,000 is a lot of money. It's a small portion of the total project cost. I mean, the pavement alone, when you're looking at these dollars and cents, the pavement is the expensive part, is nearly half of what the cost of the project costs. And that's what most of our projects are anyway, is basically straight pavements. When we do our overlays, that's the majority cost, because then we're just doing shoulder work. Just putting rock back on and doing some painting and whatever else. And Jim's familiar with that with our projects. A lot of our overlays are less intensive on roads that have existing widths, that have right-of-ways that are easy to work within with the overlays, and some of them have been difficult for, but,
So I don't have a problem with improving any of our roads, so it's not that I don't want to improve this, it's just that this thing is very expensive. For some reason, it's very expensive. And the 20-foot road spreadsheet that I gave everybody, there's 2 of those roads on there that we've done recently. One was on the state line, from north of Latrano, and then to the west, we did that 1 mile section. The other one was in and out of Little Cedar. Little Cedar has a town, Little Cedar has an elevator. We never did any reconstruction for any of that road. We built it as it was. So that's one thing I'm wondering, why these roads are going to be getting special treatment as far as being widened and culverts all being replaced. We've never replaced culverts just to replace culverts in any of our projects in the past. We've always went out, visually looked at them, if they're usable. Little Cedar's got a good example. West of it, there was a narrow box culvert. I went out and looked at it. It's usable. It's narrow, but we paved right over the top of it. So there's aspects of what we're doing that I think are very expensive and that we haven't done in the past.
right.
So at the bottom of that spreadsheet, from that spreadsheet, it shows 18.75 miles or 20-foot roads. It's approximate mileage. I just visually did that. So if you plug in 18.75 times $1 million a mile, or $900,000 a mile, $750,000 a mile, or $500,000 a mile, you see those numbers. So is this something that we're going to start doing, that we're going to widen all these 20-foot roads out in the future and have this type of cost as far as doing our projects in the future? Or are we just going to say, well, we're going to do it for this area of the county, but over here we're not going to do it? Folks have a sand pit that goes south of the Orchard Road. That's a 20-foot road, and that's getting into be rough shape. Are we going to widen it to 22? We're going to totally reconstruct it? So I think there's more to look at as far as the future as compared to just this project.
I agree, and I think that the driver behind this project in general was previous board members getting calls about the width of that corridor and getting a lot of complaints that it's not wide enough for a lot of the farm equipment anymore. So that was the driver behind the project at the time of conception. So one thing that other counties may have, and this could help out in future projects, I know I'm kind of deviating from the topic here, but other counties will have what am I trying to think? They'll have a procedure, I can't think of the word now, Jimmy and I talked about it.
Paving points?
Well, no, it's they'll have an ordinance for, not necessarily, maybe an ordinance is the wrong word, but an ordinance for when we look at evaluating roads. We have DOT standards and we could, policy, correct? So when we have minimum DOT standards we can meet, and right now, that road on Kirkwood and Hickory meet the minimum standards for the traffic that are on there. The minimum roads from Ashto are 20-foot wide with a minimum of a 2-foot shoulder, which we have out there. So we meet the minimum requirements. The question is, when we look at a project from here on out, are we going to want to we obviously have to meet those minimums, but do we want to try to improve the widths on certain roads based on the needs of the public? Or, that's the thing, some counties have those policies where they'll say, look, we've got some 24-foot wide bridges, our policy in the county is gonna be, whenever we evaluate replacing a bridge, we're gonna meet a minimum of a 30-foot width, and we're gonna evaluate whether we can do box culverts first, there's a procedure for them. We don't have a procedure here, so we've always been taking a case-by-case basis on these things, and this is, without a procedure, sometimes that's what happens, is we get into these situations where it's driven by the public a little bit, and that's what I can tell you, Jim, is it was kind of driven by the public, and we needed a wider corridor through there based on that, and that was the direction, I guess, I was given by the board.
And I'll just say Orchard, like you could pick any other part of the county, Varroa, I'm sure Orchard, Varroa could care less if we're gonna widen those roads up there. With their tax dollars, they could say, I could care less. I want the same thing for my road, so we run into that all the time out at the office. I mean, that happens all the time. So
Because each situation is being treated different, and without a policy, it's hard to say, okay, well, and in a policy, you can have that leniency that the board can say, well, we'll do this, but if the board deems something different, then the board makes that decision on if we're gonna go wider or not wider, but it makes things a lot easier in design to know that there's a policy that you want the engineer's office to follow when we do stuff like this. Before, there hasn't been, so it's been, we're gonna try to meet the standards of the DOT, and then it's kind of just individual direction from the board on each situation, so that's where we're at, and that's why we're where we're at, I guess, if that explains it a little bit.
But that Falk Road, the sand pit, they did that to keep the dust down, didn't they? They had a lot of complaints from the public.
Well, like I said, I don't know if it was dust or it was more or less that when you have an increased volume of traffic on a road, it becomes a maintenance problem. So then that's a lot of times doing no hard surfaces, because if you're constantly blading it, constantly putting rock on it because of the increased traffic flow, that can merit a hard surfacing also. So I think that had something to do with it.
But more than likely, it was driven by the board getting complaints that something needs to be done. I can only assume that wasn't gonna happen, but that's typically how it happens, and we don't have a policy for when people wanna upgrade roads, so.
I got something to say too, I don't know, all these other 20-foot roads are all short stretches, mile and a half, half mile. Line Kiln Road, Golf Course Road, they're all residential areas, Spring Park Road. There's probably a reason they're 20 foot, is because they don't have any farm equipment on any of them. They're all, a lot of it's residential, so where I can see where, farm to market road or a lot of farm equipment on it, you need that extra width, but a lot of these here don't need it, That's probably why they are the way they are, They're not public driven, because,
But we did do it for Little Cedar when we did that road. I mean, that's
yeah,
an
that's
example,
one
so.
that one's probably one that does get farm equipment, yeah. But the rest of these a lot of these are, and they're short stretches too.
It's just a lot of money. That's
Yep, you're right, it's not expensive, it's not cheap to do these projects.
Yeah, and if these two roads were in the plans for this year, why are they so far behind? I mean, you got Foothill at the top of the list, you got these are way behind. Why is that? If these were supposed to be done this year, why are we behind these?
Well, we could have had our lettings here, when we were scheduled for lettings in April, so we would have had them in the April letting, and we would have had them bid, and they'd be doing one this summer.
I don't get why these are in the back burner.
So what?
I don't get why these have been in the back burner, it's been like.
They're being let with the rest of the projects that would be done this year, or they would have been. Now we're kind of kicking the can down the road and making a decision on whether we want to spend the money.
I think they need to proceed.
So how much money do we have for paving? Let's say we go with a $4.3 million project. How much money do we have sitting that is for that?
Right now, our farm to market balance is sitting roughly at $5 $5.3 million in the farm to market account. I think I thought I gave you guys the spreadsheets a couple weeks ago on the options.
So if we went with a $4.3 million cementing it, we would have the funds to do it?
You also have, if you do Hickory would probably make the total between both projects around $5 million.
You're gonna do both of these.
You're gonna do both, I mean, they're right next to each other.
Correct.
So, we would be very close, yes. But we wouldn't be doing Foothill, and so when Foothill comes around, we wouldn't have the funding in the farm to market account to cover Foothill next year. Or whenever we decide to put it back in the program, we need to borrow for that project. Or not do it, I guess.
I'm gonna stop the conversation, it's 9 a.m.
It is 9 a.m. Okay, we're going to have to move on to the hearing on the property tax levy for 21-22. So I guess we will proceed to that. We want to open that up, the public hearing. And Amy, do you have anything that you would like to say? Well, this isn't yours, is it?
No, this isn't mine.
Okay, Rachel, is there any more that we have to add to this?
I did not receive any oral or written comment.
Okay, correct, I was going to, fellow supervisors, have you received any oral or written comments?
No.
I have not.
I have not either. I assume that's marked on there. Is there any discussion on this? Hearing none. We'll want to close the public hearing. And it is 9:01. And we move on to number 7, correct?
Yep.
Okay. We want to approve resolution for year ending 2022 maximum property dollars. And again, should I read this completely, Rachel?
I'm not sure how you did that in the past. I think it's better not the whole thing.
Don't want to read it?
Up to you.
Okay, well, you know what, I think I should. Whereas the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors has considered the proposed for year ending 2022 county maximum property tax dollars for both general county services and rural county services. And whereas a notice concerning the proposed county maximum property dollars was published as required and posted on the county website, and whereas a public hearing concerning the proposed county maximum property tax dollars was held on February 23rd, 2021. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Supervisors of the Mitchell County that the maximum property dollars for general county services and rural county services for year ending 2022 shall not exceed the following. General county services, $3,901,196. Rural county services, $2,238,450. The maximum property tax dollars requested in either general county services or rural county services for year ending 2022 does represent an increase of 102% from the maximum property tax dollars requested for year ending 2021. So, with that read, questions? Comments? And I guess we need to have a motion.
I move to approve the resolution for the fiscal year 2022 maximum property tax dollars.
Jim has made a motion. Do we have a second?
I will second that.
Mike has seconded. Roll call vote. Those in favor say aye, and Todd?
Aye.
Mark?
Aye.
Jim?
Aye.
Mike?
Aye.
Smolik, aye. So it is unanimous, it's all in favor. So moving on,
Or do you want to go back to your conversation?
yes, we shall. Rich, you were stating we won't have enough money to do Hickory then in a year's time?
Well, with cost savings that we have, we can rerun the numbers. We could be pretty close to having a small amount of money that would need to be borrowed, depending on if we redesign Foothill for a different paving alternative. We lower the costs on Hickory and Kirkwood. We may just eke by for the next fiscal year with maybe not having to borrow money, but it all depends on what the economy does and what the costs do.
Yes.
There's no guarantees. There never is. But it could be close to, if we do Foothill next year and we change the paving method to something different, and we see, if we change the paving method to asphalt and oil prices go up, we aren't gonna save any money by doing asphalt versus concrete. I just don't, I
That'll
don't
be
see
in the
that.
future. We'd have to figure that out in the future.
Right. I mean, if I'm estimating 2.3 on Foothill now, and oil prices go up and we do a different construction method, we could see higher prices doing asphalt depending on what the oil markets do and everything else. It's that volatile that we might not see a savings, and then so we would have to borrow money. So
Look at it then, I guess.
that's
So basically what you're looking for is for our approval to do the 4.3 and hopefully we would get it within the.
I'm looking for direction on what projects you guys want to do now that we have to make sure WHKS.
David.
We have to make sure WHKS, you guys can meet that March 16th deadline, otherwise we won't make a letting and we will lose funds.
Okay, David.
Have you done any design using macadam base instead of concrete and asphalt? It's macadam now and it has been for 30 years and really isn't that bad a shape. And we could save probably 6-8 inches of height, which would make it wider for us.
What we have out there now is a macadam chokestone base, and Dave's been in my office discussing the alternative things too, and his idea was a little bit of shoulder widening and seal coating the road after you mill off the asphalt surface. I mean, it's obviously a lot cheaper. I don't know, without still have to fit it in the right of way. It's not been analyzed that way. It's seal coat. We've had a lot of seal coat roads in the county before. It's not a long-term pavement by any means compared to just regular asphalt or concrete.
It can be overlaid with asphalt in the future.
Like it has already, right?
Yeah, that has already been, that's been there for 30 years, so I'm guessing if you go with macadam, you could probably save $1 million. But,
Well, it's just, where's the goal, I guess?
yeah.
We've been all over the place now.
That's right.
We need
So
to know.
how wide you have designed that now? You got 22 foot plus 4 foot shoulder on each side, total 30?
Couldn't make that work. Not in the
What-
right
what-
The
way.
current design is 24-foot pavement with 3-foot shoulders on each side, so 30-foot top.
That's the current one that needs right away.
But you have to buy right away.
Yep.
But we're talking one without right away, if you could squeeze something in there? Is
Right,
that
that would be back to like a 22-foot pavement with 2-foot shoulders.
The same as what's essentially there now.
And we aren't getting our width, but, okay.
Mike?
So as a farmer up in that area, what we really need is we need the width. it's not wide enough to get this equipment down there anymore, and especially to try to meet somebody on it with all the truck traffic that we have. You end up stopping your equipment and hopefully that person can get by. We need some wider shoulders, some more right-of-way. The top, I don't think anybody really cares what the top is made out of, whether it's asphalt or concrete. But the catch-22 is the better you make the road, the more traffic it's gonna get. That is your main artery other than 218 for going into Minnesota. And Rochester keeps growing, that's the road people run. And the better we make it, the more traffic it's gonna get. But we really need shoulders is what we need to try to get this equipment down the road. There's a lot of times we'll send a pickup ahead just to watch for traffic because we have to pull off into a field driveway somewhere just to get down the road. And what's the width of the road that goes by my place now? I mean, that is a nice width road.
You're at, I think, 22 feet with at least 4 foot of shoulder on each side.
Yeah.
So you're at,
It's 100-foot right away.
yep, 100 foot right away. Yep.
And what's the right of way north of there then?
66.
66 on our Kirkwood, and then the Minnesota road that comes in is way over 100, it looked like, from the GIS data. It's like 115 feet wide. That asphalt road going north and south, I think I measured it at about 24 feet wide, and they had 4 foot shoulders on that road. The little stub on the county line, on the state line is pretty narrow, and that's just a regular, I think, 66 foot wide right away. It's just a spillover hard surface to go from one hard surface to another, I think is what it was in Minnesota. It's Minnesota's road to maintain, so, but those are the numbers that we measured.
You know, the top could be band-aided along. I mean, there's enough glue on that thing right now from the way the windmill people put that thing together. It would last another year. I mean, we don't have huge potholes in it, but it's the grading that really needs to happen.
Is the existing surface, the way it's paved now, does it meet design criteria as far as without having, okay, I'll back up. And I hate to be chasing this thing all around because we've designed it this way and we've designed it that way, and I'm kind of getting sick of it, just like you are. So what if a person milled off the entire surface so that when you put back either 6 or 7 inches of concrete, you're at the same elevation as what the existing road is right now? Can you build a 3-to-1 4 slope by doing it that way and still meet the design criteria, your clear zone, that type of thing, with a 2-to-1 back slope? I mean, I know that's...
I believe we'd need to get a design exception for clear zone regardless of what we're not gonna buy right away, we'll need a design exception, which I think, to me, I think it's a doable thing. We don't have, on that road, we don't have accident data at all. I don't think there's any accidents where it has anything to do with a clear zone, with an obstruction in the clear zone that caused an accident or somebody struck something in the right way. So I think that's something that can be done. It's what do we want to do for safety from here on out? You know, we got 2-to-1 side slopes. Can we do it? We have to look at it and make sure. We keep kicking this down the road, we won't make.
Yeah. I'm just trying to make it happen.
Yep.
and save
No, I
some
know,
money.
I understand.
That's it.
I understand.
It's ridiculously overpriced, I'm still with that.
It's expensive to rebuild a road. Yep.
When I left a week ago, I thought we'd come back to 22-foot rows. I thought we would be maybe into the millions of savings, and we're only got $800,000. I'm like, good Lord, that's not much.
Well,
I mean,
and 2.4 million of the project cost is pavement.
Any other comments?
Nope. I can offer a count, because Rich asked, I'll offer a count on the schedule. To redesign the whole thing, we have 3 weeks from today. And we're talking, and that's to make the June letting, I don't know if we can do it, I'll be honest with you. If we're talking about having to change the profiles, change the ditching, change the forest slopes, back slopes, so that we don't buy any right of way. I mean, that's a lot of work on 5.5 miles worth of road to do. Now, culverts, you know, if you don't wanna do the culverts, we still have to do the extension, so we still have to do some design work. It's not as if we'd have to throw all of that stuff away that we've already done. Or, let me rephrase that, not throw it away, but we can reuse some of that work that we've done. But if you're narrowing up the road, then we can shorten the pipes up, which would be another cost savings. But, I mean, I'm just being honest, you know, 3 weeks to design 5.5 miles, or redesign 5.5 miles of road for a total reconstruction, is gonna be hard to do. And that's the date we need to have it in to meet the DOT schedules. And in the past, the DOT was a little bit flexible on those dates. They are no longer flexible on those dates. They're not in at 7 o'clock that morning, they're late. And I'll just tell you, we've had, well, Rich, you had 2 bridges
That weren't late and got pushed back.
that
because
were
they were
late
so
and got
busy.
pushed back, at no fault of Rich's or anybody's. It was, they did not have the staff to review the project, or to review the plans to give comments back. So they just,
And I think that happened to these projects too. They
Yeah.
got pushed back a month because of the workload they had.
Yeah.
So that's part of the delay here, but, you know, Mike, are you getting a lot of pressure to get these done?
Well,
I mean, if we waited a year and still said we were gonna do these next year, is that still, I mean,
I don't know,
if we wanna go back and revisit everything and change the whole design because now there's new criteria that you guys want evaluated, it can be done, but if we can get we get through this spring and summer and go through and get some better data to evaluate this. We're trying to cram stuff here in a month's time to make this happen. What are we gonna, you know?
I just feel if it don't happen this year, it probably won't happen.
No, I think it will.
Oh, I think it will. I think it will happen.
It's gotta happen. That's not.
I don't think that's a conversation we're having.
It will happen.
I don't think that's the conversation at all.
You know, that's consensus from the public.
That's the
Hard to get
consent.
things happen on the north end of town.
Pardon me?
It's hard to get good things to happen on the north end of
I
town.
think there's been a lot of
I disagree with that.
maybe promises that it, you know, I think what you're working with is people that have been told for 20 years that something was gonna happen and hasn't.
Right, exactly, around Totterville, that, going
And-
to Totterville is gonna be done for how many years? Mike?
Can you, if you do decide to make it wider, can you do the grading, say this year, so, I mean, you can show some activity there, maybe do your paving on Foothill to get some paving done, and make this a 2-year project, and get the grading
I
done.
thought that's
Oh,
what.
yeah.
Is that what-
it's gonna have to be a 2-year project,
Yeah.
no matter what. There wouldn't be any paving done this year.
No.
Yeah, yeah,
There'd be more
What's that?
culverts and
Well,
grading.
you can tell Mike, I asked that same question, and Rich said it's all gotta be one package.
It would be led as one package, the paving wouldn't have to be, I mean, if we wanna tear the project plans apart and say this is just a grading project,
But what Mike had said is to do Foothill this year, and then these other Hickory and
do your grading on Kirkwood and Hickory, pave Foothill,
and I've thought that also that's a common sense thing.
yep,
Let's do what we've got organized, it's ready to go, it's in the slot, ready to be picked by the DOT. Do it, get it done with, and then think about this thing, make this thing a good project that's economically, rather than just trying to jam it through when there's questions involved with it. To me, that's a common sense thing to do.
that's the way that road has always been handled, it's been jammed through, and it's never been done right. You know, it needs to be wider, you know, the top is up to you guys, I don't care. But
well, that's kind of the question. If we're gonna do this right, define for me what right is.
I just did as far as what I think is right. What's everybody else want?
Do we need, you know, to widen this to get a wider road? You know, Mike's saying wider shoulders. Well, wider shoulders widens the footprint, which is what the initial design is to widen it out. We could put a 22-foot wide road in there and narrow it up by the shoulder width a little bit, which is what we kinda did anyway, so there's that. I mean,
Can you take your right of way just from one side of the road?
then you have a problem with who's getting the better treatment, you know, then you're realigning your center line off of this.
I know, but you don't have any building sites to deal with.
Well, I don't think the building sites on the right-of-way askings are even an issue with any property in that respect.
Okay.
For 7 feet on each side, it's pretty minimal for,
David,
It looks to me like Foothills is designed the way it should be designed. And I think that right now, Kirkwood up there is way over-designed. I think a lot of money could be saved if it were designed differently, but we don't have time. So why don't we just go ahead and do Foothills, which is, that's designed properly for what it is, and the traffic it takes and everything, and then spend this year deciding what they need, and getting it done right when they do it in another year, and probably save $1 million or $2.
Mike, can you get the farmers up there to agree to letting us widen it this year?
Jeez.
but we still need to get a
Rich
plan
is so
together.
much better at that.
We still need to get a plan together for widening, I mean, that's the other
Right,
thing too.
right.
I will say one thing, that Kirkwood's traffic has increased steadily for 20 years. It now takes more traffic than Folks Quarry Road takes traffic.
That's not completely.
According to the DOT traffic
We tell you the
counts,
figures, but,
according to the DOT traffic counts,
yeah.
Kirkwood
according to
takes
the
300 vehicles
count.
a day and Indigo takes 290.
290, that's 300.
And the better you make it, the more traffic you're gonna get, so.
If we go ahead and turn this over to Foothill, now you meet the deadlines on Foothill.
Foothill's already in.
done. It's ready
I'm
to
already
go.
getting, I told you guys 2 weeks ago, I hadn't pulled it from the project because I didn't know where we were headed. You guys wanted to pull it, and like I said, I will pull that project when you guys really want to. But because we didn't know where we were with Kirkwood and Hickory and not knowing deadlines, I don't want to lose farm to market funds. So we have a project in the letting right now that we can save our funds from loss. And not knowing what prices are gonna be like, we don't know whether, you know, what the bids are gonna be, obviously, but, you know, we've been trying to come up with, numbers for you guys to evaluate, and it's been difficult on our end to try to meet everybody's needs and requirements based on something that was developed and started, you know, I don't know, a year ago.
Here we go.
Based on guidance from a year ago, and now things you guys wanna change. And I sense your frustration, Mike, I understand your frustration.
How many people are complaining about Foothill? Can you tell me? You get any complaints on Foothill?
Well,
Needs to be repaved?
it needs to be repaid, I mean,
Then
that's,
you get, yeah, but anybody driving the roads, is it rough, is it, you know? I
it's
mean,
falling apart,
you know,
it's starting to, and we get a lot of traffic, a lot of heavy traffic on there.
do
I
you-
mean-
do you hear any public input on it, you know?
We try to get roads before we get to that point.
Well,
Mike?
So, one other thing that I think you guys should consider before you do any of these projects is, there's nothing more frustrating for you than to get a project all done, get your top all down, and then here you got some damn farmer that wants to put a tile crossing across through road. And of course, the best way to do that is to obviously bore it, you know, after your top is on. But could we go ahead and put some tile crossings in before these tops go on? I know of one project that's probably gonna happen north on Kirkwood a ways, up by Mike Mullenbeck's. And we should talk to the farmers, you know, are you thinking about doing this anytime soon? You know, you're looking at 20 to 50-year roads. Stuff's gonna change.
Depends on if you're hooking up on one side or the other, and who's paying for it. I mean, if it's an existing tile and it's gonna be usable the day you do it, then the county has to pay for it, but if you're just doing things for advance,
Yep.
then it's gonna be the farmers are gonna have to pay for it.
But, okay, so, if you were to put the crossing in now, am I understanding that right,
Yep,
Jim?
Yep,
Okay, So yeah, what we're trying to forecast is what's gonna happen 20 years down the road. And yeah, this water is probably gonna come through here. Do we go ahead and put that pipe in now, so it's intact?
For 20 years down the road, is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
You want a dead pipe in there for 20 years?
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah, that's
I think
exactly
they would
what
pay
I'm
for it,
saying.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I would think, yeah, they're not.
Yeah. We wouldn't put the bill for that. If you're gonna run water through it as soon as you get it done, then we're hooked for that. But if you're just gonna do something for the future, you guys are gonna pay for that.
Okay,
What about isn't the city gonna run some sewer through Foothill? Thinking about it?
Don't know where that project is at. Would they
I don't,
bore?
I can't tell you yet either.
I don't know if they would bore.
If they go ahead with that, then yes, we'd have to cut that road.
Or would they, well, you know, any idea what size they would need there?
I think it's gonna be 12 inch.
They could almost bore
They could
that through the road.
Well, the bore would cost more, but that might be the route to go, I don't know. It's kind of in its infancy yet.
I just don't wanna put a new road down and then rip it up.
Well, and I don't know if they were gonna put it down now, whether we wanted to, depending on what we were gonna do. I mean, if that road was 10 years old, would we allow them to cut open, or would we'd probably tell them to bore it, but we'd wanna look at the costs too, because then it would be borne on, to me, it would be borne on the city to pay for any open excavation and pavement replacement anyway. And in that respect, sometimes boring is just as cost effective as open cut when you're talking
Depends on
about.
what you're boring through. If you're gonna go through limestone, there's gonna be a 16 foot of depth.
Right,
Change
yeah,
the whole
yeah, there's a
ballgame.
lot of unknowns with that kind of a
Right, and
situation.
it's still, we don't know exactly when it's gonna happen.
We're still up in the air on Kirkwood and Hickory yet.
Did they drill out there where this has to go under? I know they did some drilling out there in that area.
Yeah, they did some drilling on the site, they didn't in the ditch, as far as I know.
They did it with limestone, that was the thing, but
Not up in where they're gonna put the development. But this line's all going under T26 and down A38 ditch on the north side.
Still
It's gonna be deep and in some rock more than likely.
But if you do
County,
Foothill,
we
you
think
gotta go
limestone somewhere.
concrete or asphalt.
The way it's designed right now, it's concrete, and if you guys wanna change that design, we'd have to design something different in 3 weeks to make the letting in June.
But if we do Foothill, I wanna go all the way to the stop sign on 4th Street.
Pardon?
If we do Foothill, I'm in favor to go all the way to the stop sign to 4th Street.
Then we gotta redesign to add ADA compliant sidewalks and everything else, then we won't make that letting.
So we'll lose money either way.
Yep.
'Cause I can't see paving that road and not going into town. Is there a way to pave it without doing the sidewalks, or can the city do them with you guys?
Here's what can happen, and we can do our thing to 7th Street, 8th Street, whatever, 8th Street. If the city decides they wanna do something in town, they can talk to our contract, it cannot be part of our project for the DOT letting. If the city wants to pay for an asphalt lift or a mill and fill in the city, they can do that with their own. That way, the responsibility is not borne on the county to abide by the ADA compliance. That'd be on the cities if they wanna do something extra, because our project is designed up until the city limits, and then beyond that, if they wanna try to talk to our contractors and do their own little side contract with paving into town, that can be done by the city. But we cannot let a project through the DOT where ADA compliance is not met. And when you design that, you've gotta have specific elevations, specific slopes on sidewalks, the truncated dome approaches, you're talking 4-foot wide shoulder. It's not just something to just plop out there on our end, it takes design work to do. And so if the city wants to work something out on their own and take on their own, because they are the city sidewalks, if they wanna do that, they can talk to the contractors and get something done that way.
was there some talk of the county loaning the city some money to do that, or is that something that, a ruler, I don't know.
That wasn't any of my discussion, I guess, that was more of the board's discussion, whether they wanted to.
And most of that
It was a discussion you and I had one time.
About, well, if there was a contract written between the county that you pay it back, yes. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Most of that talk was prior to us getting on. It was pre-January 1, because I listened to a lot of that. And, I mean, is that something you could get done, Keith, by approaching them on doing the sidewalks?
We can put it on gravel down there if we need to recover it, but yeah, if the county doesn't help us out with it, we'll have to figure out how we're going to do it. And we'll do ADA crossings as we go as well.
I think what Keith is saying is that the city doesn't have the money to come up with the costs to pave in town, is that what I'm gathering?
Right, we're just like the county. We're gonna lose road use tax money this year at a cost of about 8%. We've got a lot of other streets in town that need fixing. We have needs up there to pave. So we would treat that when we could fit it into our budget, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
But
if the county doesn't have money to help fund it, then we have to figure out how to fund it in
That-
the time frame that it comes in.
And that would have to be separate from the project as it's let. Because like I said, if we start adding, going into town and using the ADA compliant sidewalk, number one, the plans don't have that included. And number two, if it did include it, then we'd have to design the sidewalk such, and the DOT won't let it without the proper design for ADA compliance. So if they wanted to do something, like I said before, if they want to do something on the side and they don't have the money, I guess that's something that the city would talk to the board about, but it's not part of our paving project because of those situations.
So who puts the boulevards back together then? The city?
When you say the boulevards,
Well, if we get into town, isn't there gonna be curb and boulevard?
there's not curb and gutter on that stretch of road that comes into St. Ansgar. It's a rural cross section. And all, the design originally was for a mill and fill through there anyway, so we were gonna keep the grade the same. So it was a pretty simple surfacing job to come into town, up until the ADA compliance, situation came up.
That can't be changed by the letting?
No, I mean, contractors already have plans that they're already asking questions on, and to try to put an addendum through there, you need to get out there and survey everything with all the snow and everything. You're just not gonna get all the data we need to design it. It's just too tight of a time frame.
I don't think, I mean, we've had this huge discussion, but what it boils down to is, I think you're either gonna lose FM funding, or we're gonna pay Foothill as it is. I mean,
And
am I
agree.
right?
I think we,
I mean,
if Foothill's ready to go, I would like to be able to pacify Mike if we could get some grading done, you know, to kind of show his people that,
It's gonna happen next year then, yeah.
you know, that's gonna happen. I mean, how do you
What-
feel?
Well, whether grading takes place, we gotta come up with a grading plan then for, we still, if we're gonna do it, are we gonna now do it as two separate projects, a grading project and a paving project? It's a lot more, it's easier to do everything, you know, let it now with a grading plan and a paving plan and say paving's not for the next year, and then we're just done messing around. Now, it still takes, if we're gonna just do grading and let it, you know, the project hasn't been finalized with the DOT yet, but it's a grade and pave project as it's defined, where there's a grading aspect and a paving aspect, and, you know, in the timeline, we determine that. If you wanna go and say we're gonna grade it, well, what are we grading? Are we, you guys, you know, we've got requests for wider shoulders. Well, wider shoulders, we've already said, wider shoulders require additional right-of-way. If we wanna do wider, if we wanna keep everything within the right-of-way, we're gonna give them the same 2-foot shoulder top and 20-foot pavement surface. If, you know, this is why it was kind of, a year ago, was designed as a widened section. So, if you guys wanna change design aspects, we don't have a problem with that. We just don't have a lot of timeline here to be changing it every week. And I'm trying to be as as easy to work with as I can, but things just don't happen that quick because of the data needed to make things happen.
A couple of weeks ago, Jim said it could be designed within the right of way for the 22 foot, right?
I had an idea that it could work. I still kind of think that it would, but I don't know all the, like WH Gas said, it needed design exception as far as the back slopes. That's just my opinion. Doesn't mean that's what the DOT is gonna say,
Yeah.
but.
Jim, do you see any of those deals? I made some cross sections, Rich has them, and different ideas that the person might come up with, and we adjust the width and a few things like that, so.
So I mean, we just need to decide, are we gonna pay Foothill this year, or are we just gonna lose FM funds? To me, that's
No brainer.
The question.
We need to,
I mean,
we can't lose funds. I think I'd be okay with doing Foothill and
We could, I don't know, Scott, even based on, okay, so let's give another scenario and we say, this is hypothetical, we keep Foothill going as it is. We get a few more months a few more months, whatever. We get extra time, we aren't gonna meet a June letting, but we could still do a letting in July, August, September for this project, to get it moving, and get under contract even before winter. I mean, it's not dead set that we can't let anything after June, it's just to try to meet the farm to market requirements for commitment for funds. We can do July lettings, we can do August lettings, there's a letting every month. And it wouldn't be unheard of, it's not common, but it's not unheard of to do a bigger project in the summer for a letting. It's not impossible. Whether the work even gets started, it's still under contract, so people know it'll get done. It's just that when it's let, they look at the farm to market funds at that point in time.
Would there be any benefit in letting it locally? We wouldn't have to jump through quite so many hoops, I don't know.
I still think you're taking a big risk with AASHTO design standards and everything else to not meet requirements put out there. I mean, I understand maybe years past, things were maybe, I'm not saying for sure, but maybe they were kind of skirted around some of these requirements, but you gotta understand, we have licenses to maintain, and you guys aren't the ones that, if somebody gets hurt and dies, you guys aren't the ones that are liable, it's the engineer's license that gets revoked, not yours. And we wanna make sure we do things right anyway, we don't want something like that to happen.
I guess the problem that we're trying to resolve was a mistake made when we did the road on Kirkwood.
Are you referring to back in the 90s, or?
Yes. Had it been done right to begin with back then, we wouldn't be having this problem today.
Right or wrong, the standards have probably changed since then, so it was probably okay back then to do what was done. Things have changed, things have gotten bigger, traffic's gotten heavier, wider.
It was always the big joke back then, is we put in an illegal road.
Do you have any roads in the county that have a 22-foot paved in a 66-foot right of way?
I was trying to look at some of that. We probably do.
Probably do.
But they probably don't meet
They probably don't meet current standards.
They don't have,
And they don't
they
have
don't
a
have.
shoulder.
I think, I know I was looking at some, I think there was a road east of New Haven that has an 80-foot right of way and a 22-foot top. I measured that off GIS. I looked at it. Yeah.
oh,
Yep. I was trying to look at other 22-foot or 66-foot right of ways, and a lot of them are gravel. Most, I'm not gonna say all, because Foothill's one of them and Hickory's probably one of them too, but most farm to market roads typically have a wider right of way than 66 foot. And not all of them, but a good majority of them do because of the situation of the traffic volumes and all those design standards for farm to market routes. Not all of them, I'm not saying all of them, but a good majority of them have wider than 66 foot right of ways. And if they don't, they might have been added to the farm to market system after, there's ways to add roads to farm to market systems and such, so that,
I believe that, the one going past the old county home,
Yep.
that
That's
is, I
66.
believe it's 22 foot wide with 4 foot shoulder on each side.
I don't know.
Total 30 foot wide. I measured from the center line to the edge of the slab, and that was 11 foot, 15 foot to the edge of the show, so it's 30 foot travel on that, and that's 66 foot right away, of course.
With a ditch that goes almost to the right of way line.
Yeah.
Ditch. Yep. And I'm not sure they're 4-foot shoulders, I guess I don't recall what they were, but I don't remember what that gravel road was before it was paved either, so.
But I measured yesterday, it was pretty close to 30 foot that you can't see because of the snow sometimes.
Anyways, we still have not resolved what we wanted to do here.
I don't know if it needs to be motion or not, but I will try to do it, but I wanna pay Foothill as designed this year, put Hickory and Kirkwood in, design status, where we figure out what we're gonna do.
Let's look at alternatives then. I mean, we've got some alternatives, we can definitely look deeper into it. I mean, the data is, the survey that WHK has is very valuable to trying to figure out whether things will fit or not fit.
Okay, so what are you asking? Because if we do what Jim's saying, we have to rescind the motion that we made previously.
We actually kinda did, next week, remember, we'd have to ask Mark, but I thought we rescinded that to talk for more discussion.
That was I think that you're talking about when we were gonna just table it for 1 week versus 2 weeks. I think they rescinded the tabling for 1 week
Oh, we
and
just
did
tabled
2
it,
weeks, yeah.
okay, I thought we rescinded.
And I don't know if, was there a motion? Maybe there was. I mean,
Yeah.
back when you guys wanted to pull Foothill.
We did it.
Yep, you did. And like I said, I know you did it, but with the unknowns here and the funding and stuff, it's not pulled yet. It's still in the process, so.
So,
Is that a motion, Jim, or?
I'm sorry, I interrupted Jim. I'm sorry. Come on to
Yeah, I'll call that as a motion. I move that we, pay Foothill as currently designed, and the Hickory Kirkwood projects will undergo further design for future construction.
And we can even target letting later this year. Is that?
Sure.
That traffic count on Foothill, is that from number 9 to town, or?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's 1,200 cars a day on that?
11 now. Here, I can look real quick.
That's almost a car every little over a minute,
It's an average annual daily traffic
all
count.
day long.
I think it's 1170, Rich.
Yeah, I just had the current count. Is 1,210 from 2017 count. 11. Maybe your eyes are better than mine, even with glasses. I can't hardly see it. Well, I highlighted it and made the numbers sharper.
It's close to 12.
Yeah, we're about 1,200. It's increased since 2013.
There's a lot of feed trucks that go down that road. From, I see them come from the St. Ansgar, Stacy to Osage.
okay,
There's, go ahead.
Jim's made a motion to do Hickory, south of, right? Foothill, south of St. Ansgar, with the current plan, and you're saying with concrete.
As designed, as it is designed.
And Jim has made that motion.
But are you also adding in that the other projects are still under design?
Correct. As Jim stated, that we have to figure out how we're going to do them, and unfortunately, that's not gonna work for this year, Mike. And that's gonna have some hot heads.
Well, even if we can show the letting, maybe we get some of the dirt work done if this is the route you decide to go. People are gonna see activity. I think they'll be fine with that.
Okay. Anyways, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
And we shall, all those in favor, this is gonna be a, well, yeah, I'll let you have your, yes, discussion involved. Mark, you got something to say?
Well, we don't have enough money to do the dirt work and pave Foothill.
they'll, yeah, well,
What's that?
We don't have enough money to pay Foothill and do the dirt work on those other two roads. So we can plan on doing that.
Design them and find money. That's what we'd have to do it this other way also. We have to find money.
Are you using, I don't have it in front of me, but I think there's maybe 70-some thousand in farm to market and that 200 and some thousand come.
that hasn't been deposited yet, and so those are just theoretical numbers, and I don't know when we'll get those, but those will be. So,
But we can use that money for roads, correct?
yeah, right, yeah. But we gotta know how, they deposit that as a check, that, we get our road use tax money every month, so it just kind of throws into the budget. But the 74,000 or whatever it was, that's in the farm market account, which adds to our accumulated balances.
But if we get the dirt work, would that take the money off that we wouldn't lose?
If we let Foothill, we won't lose money.
No, but if we do the dirt work on Kirkwood and Hickory, would that be enough to take our farm to market down so we wouldn't lose it?
We'd have to make sure we could get it in the letting before June in order to do anything like that. And I don't, from what I'm hearing is the time constraints are not there to make the June letting to be able to not lose funding. So this is one option here, and this is one I figured, if we do Foothill now, we don't have to borrow money this year. If we plan, let's just say we let the project, and this is gonna change depending on what month, when the quarters and funds come in. I threw in a letting of December of next year for Hickory and Kirkwood. That's not written in stone, it's just something for me to figure out the funding mechanism. The later we put it in the letting, the more farm to markets we accumulate. The more farm to market funds we accumulate, the less we'd have to put toward the farm to market account as borrowed ahead. So hypothetically, we let it in December of next year. We would only tend to have to borrow like 1.2, depending on the funds even, depending on how the projects come in. I estimated a $5 million project for combined, Hickory and Kirkwood. Rough number. If it's let in December of next year at $5 million, we would need to find $1.2 million local money. If it's let December. If it's let earlier, the farm to market account hasn't recovered completely, so, we would have less deposits in there, so if we let it in September of next year, or this year, add another 220,000 roughly, so it would be 1.3 million we need to find. The DOT looks at it from when the projects are let under contract as to what the funding is. So if we let it before a quarter comes in, then it's just that much more money we gotta come up with and that's just the way it is right now. We've never done it before, we borrowed money to pay the farm market account, so to answer your question, I'm not exactly sure whether, if we did it in December, or we did it in September, and the money didn't start coming out of the funds, it's how other programs are programmed, and that's how they look at the funding mechanism, and that's a moving target all the time. Because once the project's let with less funding, then the numbers change in the farm to market account, it frees more money up. It's just, the only thing I can give you guys is an estimated guess as to where we're gonna be at. Because the numbers are always changing based on letting and based on the actual taxes deposited. So, if we let a project before June, we won't lose farm to market funds.
David? But you're talking, let the project on Kirkwood and Hickory in December of 2021, not 2022.
Correct.
So it'll be this December.
It'd still be this, yeah, but we'd be in the next fiscal year. We wouldn't lose funding, and like I said, if we could make a July letting, which I don't know that that's possible, maybe an August letting on that. There's still time, if things were let, if we got alternatives figured out and everything, and we let a project, if it's an August letting, maybe the contractors are looking for dirt work late in the season, and they could be doing some dirt work on those roads before the end of the year. Maybe not.
Mike? I know this is kind of a dirty word, and I don't fully understand it, and I don't want to understand it, but you're not using TIF funds for any of these road projects. Is that something that would be a consideration? You know, if your farm to market road fund is getting used up?
It's probably what's going to have to happen.
Yep.
Any local effort funding we would need, the secondary road fund wouldn't be able to cover much of it. So it would have to be borrowed money.
You know, and of course, these TIF funds, for the majority of it, I'm assuming come from them stupid windmills that are up there. The Kirkwood is the one that took the biggest beating when they built these things. I mean, it's junk, but does it have to be done this year? No, it doesn't. I think, you know, people would like to see a plan and maybe a little activity, but it doesn't have to be done this year. You know,
I feel like, my feeling on the TIF, you know, I want TIF to be a long-term to use. So I feel, just as my personal feeling, that we have to dip into that for a road that we're gonna try and get 30 to 50 years out of. I really don't see a problem with that.
Yep.
You know, I mean, and it is a very busy road, you know.
it's a long-term thing that you're looking at here, and I really hate to see you try to push something through just to get it done. You know, let's take your time, think about what's gonna be best. You know, to me, you can't do it with the right of way you have. Right now, if you drop off the edge of the road, you're gonna tip over. And we haven't seen that happen yet, but it could, the older I get.
Anyways, we have a motion.
Mark, did I answer your question? I mean, I know it's kind of,
So we could do the dirt work on those two roads, not lose money, and then keep Foothill off till next year.
the only way we could not lose money and do dirt work on those two roads is if we make the June letting, and plans would have to be in by March 16th, I think it is. And I think, from what I'm understanding, is to change things now, we wouldn't have enough time, because the plans still need to be reviewed yet by the DOT if we make those big changes. So that, I don't know that that's possible. Now, we could still do grading this fall if we let it in July or August and contractors had time to come in at the end of the season to do some of that stuff. But I think where we're at right now, just
We
as.
still have to pay those contractors this fall. We don't have the money.
Well, yeah, you'd still have, we'd have to borrow, depending on when the letting is, yes, there would have to be some reimbursement back to the farm to market fund, so there would still be some borrowing, yes, you're right, yep. Just based on how the DOT lets projects and commits the funding. We know that when we get paid in our checkbooks, we don't use all of our money right away, but it's all accounted for in other bills and stuff like that, much like the farm to market account is the same way.
So the only thing we gotta do is pay Foothill and move on, because we're gonna be beating a dead horse here. That's the only thing we can do. Hope my house don't burn down.
When was Foothill put in the levy to the DOT?
Pardon me?
When was Foothill put in the levy or whatever for the DOT? Let me know what that is.
The timeline?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd have to remember back, they've got their schedules. We had plans done, I think,
For March, what is
for
it?
March letting, they would have been done just before December, I think, submitted before December.
If all three roads were in the planning, how come,
What's that?
If all three roads were in the planning for this year, why weren't they all submitted at the same time?
Because, number one, the consultant was working on the design, it's a little bit more complicated project, so it takes longer. And we planned on making the letting before the end of the fiscal year, and in January, we started kicking this can down the road, so we wouldn't, if funding was available and costs were cheaper, we probably wouldn't be sitting here talking about it, but sooner or later, we've gotta figure out where we're spending our money.
Yeah, because our plans were submitted to the DOT for comments in December. So, but that's where we sort of, so they were in the schedule to be in the March or April letter. So we did submit them at about the same time.
It was the costs that kinda said, whoa, wait a second, this is something where we've gotta look at different funding alternatives, or we need to find out where we can come up with the rest of the money.
Anyways,
So if we want asphalt on Hickory, or excuse me, Foothill, would there be enough money to do that and the dirt work?
I guess I haven't designed it, so I'd have to figure out what it would cost, but I'd still have to redesign it. I'd have to redesign Foothill and try to make the March 16th deadline, which I don't know if that's even possible either. I mean, I'd have to first of all ask the DOT for a heck of a lot of forgiveness, because we've already passed the check plan deadline for a June letting with the DOT. Final plans are due in March, and usually we're probably a week or two past the deadline date for check plans on a June letting.
So there's only one option?
Well, yeah, I guess, I mean,
We've been on this an hour and we haven't gotten anywhere.
We have a motion and a second, so we need to do a roll call.
we need to do a roll call. Todd,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jim,
Aye.
Mike?
I don't know, I don't really agree with it. I'm just saying.
Nay. So, but ayes have it. Anyways. I guess we're done with this, aren't we?
Let's move on.
Hopefully.
so now we'll come up with alternative paving plans for Hickory and Kirkwood, and try to make a summer letting of
Okay.
some sort.
So, I think we got 5 minutes yet. I don't know how much we can get out of a refinance update from DA Davidson. We can't do in 5 minutes, can we?
It should be on the line.
Are you on the line?
I am, this is Nate Summers with DA Davidson. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We got about 5 minutes and then we go to another hearing. Will that be enough?
Okay. I can certainly cover my information in 5 minutes. It just depends on how many questions you folks have, I suppose.
Okay, thank you. Let her rip.
Okay. Well, yeah, Nathan Summers with DA Davidson. Appreciate another opportunity to visit with the board here this morning. Last time, Scott Stevenson, my colleague, and myself were in person with you folks and shared a lot of information. Mostly talking about, we covered the refunding a little bit, but also talked about municipal advisor versus underwriters, some of the other things that we can do. Today, just wanted to boil it down to talk only about the refunding and just kind of distill it down to that to give you folks a chance to kind of digest that information a little bit. So hopefully what you're looking at, Rachel, an executive summary, there should be 3 pages in a PDF. Looking at the first page, just outlines the metrics of the refinancing. You're looking at average interest rates on the old bonds of about 2% to 3.31%, and basically looking at swapping out for rates in the 1% to 1.8% type range. You can look at the estimated savings on lines 9 and 12. Line 9 would outline the estimated savings for refunding the 2014A bonds. Line 12 would show the total estimated savings for the 2014B bonds. Those savings numbers on the column A shows you kind of the low interest rate scenario if rates were to go down by about 0.1%. Column B shows you if rates would go up about 0.1% from where they are now. So it kind of shows a 0.2% range of interest rate outcomes there, just to give you an idea of what interest rate movement might do to the refunding opportunity. You can see total savings on line 15 if we were to combine the 2014A and 2014B, or I'm sorry, that should be 2015B bond. Right now would save about $400,000, anywhere from $358,000 to $453,000, depending on where interest rates were to go over the next couple of months. Right now, that meets kind of industry standard metrics for in favor of moving forward with the refinancing. Page 2 shows some interest rate charts just to kind of give you an update of where the interest rate market is. That top graph is probably most telling. Shows a 10-year maturity municipal bond rated AAA, and it shows the interest rate over the course of the last decade, starting back in 2011, going through the present. You can see over there on the far right-hand side, interest rates are obviously the lowest they've been in a decade, or kind of grinding along the bottom anyway. That bottom chart is a little bit more comprehensive. It shows a 1-year, a 10-year, and a 20-year maturity. You can kind of think about that as like a, like a 5-year, a 15-year, and a 30-year mortgage rate would be kind of a comparable concept to be thinking about. That shows kind of a spread of where short-term and long-term interest rates have been over the past decade. So, like I said, just kind of wanted to distill things down for you a little bit and give you an update on
Make
where
her really quick, because we've got to pull the plug here shortly.
Yes.
Can you come back after our hearing?
Sure, yeah, I've got some flexibility this morning.
Yeah, because I think we've got to do our hearing. It is set for 10 o'clock, and everybody's standing here with a look on their face. So we'll bring you back.
Fine.
Thank you.
Let you guys have the floor. The comment.
So, it's got to be 10 o'clock, so it's call it to order, and I will let you do roll call.
Sorry, man.
Eric Wilson. Mark Kramer. Pat Hipsch.
Here.
Kyle Hobbs. Steve Cooper. Dennis Leard.
Aye.
Paul Hallbeck.
Here.
Keith Organ.
Here.
Rick Sutton. Ben Winters.
Here.
Tara Bork. Todd Frine.
Here.
James Weary.
Here.
Steve Smollett.
Here.
Mike Mayer.
Here.
Mark Hendrickson.
Here.
We do have a quorum, yes.
Okay. So, Amy, I guess you get to read the minutes.
And that's gonna put his email on you, the guy typing it on the phone.
I'm sorry, I missed what you
Ask
said.
him to put his phone on you.
Calls.
Oh, I'm not sure.
Sammy, somebody's.
Okay, that's what I-
Could you come, please? Thank you.
February 2nd, 2021, these are the minutes of the conference board. The meeting of the Mitchell County Conference Board to review the 21-22 assessor's budget was called to order by Chair Steve Smollett at 10:05 a.m. on Tuesday, February 2nd, 2021, in the boardroom of the Mitchell County Courthouse. The following members of the board were present: for the supervisors, Steve Smollett, James Weary, Mike Mayer, Mark Hendrickson, Todd Bryan by phone. And for mayors, Pat Hitch, Dennis Lear, Keith Morgan. For the Board of Education, Rick Slutton and Ben Winters. Mitchell County Assessor was present. Person present besides board members included Rhonda Weber, Assessor's Personnel. Amy Fulford read the minutes from the public hearing held February 25th, 2020. Chair Steve Smollett asked for any additions or corrections. There being none, Pat Hitch motioned to approve the minutes as read. Dennis Lear seconded the motion. Roll call vote, all ayes. Amy Fulford reviewed the 21-22 proposed budget. Amy noted that the proposed budget was an increase of less than 1% compared to last year's budget, and the levy went down 7.13% compared to the prior year. Dennis Lear inquired about line 24 software maintenance. Amy answered that she added a line category for GIS mapping and hadn't subtracted that amount from the software maintenance line. A commercial industrial multi-residential appraisal project will be coming up for the 2026 assessment year. Mike Mayer noted that the salaries appear to be over and above other county workers. Amy replied that as a statewide average, assessors are paid 22% higher than elected officials. James Weary stated that Amy is not out of line with her proposed salary when comparing other assessors' salaries. However, he questioned the other office workers. Amy answered that her budget is separate from the general fund. The conference board has authority over the assessor and deputy assessor's salary. Other employees are under Amy's discretion. Keith Morgan asked how Amy's continuing education was funded. Amy answered that it is through the office. Pat Hitch stated that when Dean Corn had retired from being assessor, Amy was the best candidate being she is here for the long term, and the conference board needs to keep good people to the job. A motion was made by Pat Hitch, seconded by Keith Morgan, to approve the 21-22 proposed budget. Roll call vote, all ayes. Chair Steve Smollett asked about setting the date for the public hearing. A motion by Dennis Lear, seconded by Keith Morgan, to set the date for Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021 at 10 a.m. in the boardroom of Mitchell County Courthouse. Roll call vote, all ayes. Amy Fulford explained the duties and makeup of the Board of Review and stated that Dale Newberry needs to be reappointed. Pat Hitch motioned. Dennis Lear seconded to reappoint Dale Newberry to the Board of Review. Roll call vote, all ayes. Amy reviewed the 2021 equalization. She explained that the statutory assessment level needs to be between 95 and 105%. Being that the median level is 92.1%, revaluation dollars will need to be added. She had a handout that explained this process. Amy noted that she is targeting 96%. Amy explained that due to a law change, she cannot be reappointed to the assessor position until it is within 6 months of her term ending date. Therefore, the conference board will need to meet again later this year. Pat Hitch asked if there needed to be an official newspaper designated to print the proposed budget. Amy answered that she will publish the proposed budget in the Enterprise Journal Press News and the Monitor Reporter newspaper. Chair Steve Smollett then asked for any other business to come before this board. There being none, the meeting was adjourned by consensus at 11:02 a.m.
Are there any additions or corrections? Hardly. Hearing none, do we have any motions to approve the minutes?
Motion.
Dennis has made a motion.
Second.
Second.
I guess, Ben?
Yeah.
Ben Winters. I guess you have to have a roll call on that, or?
Should we can we just go by consensus?
You do all eyes on that.
Do we?
All in
Okay.
favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Hearing none? Minutes have been approved. Okay, we will open this public hearing. Time is Was there any comments, questions, written or oral? Did anybody receive any of these?
I have received them.
I got 2 oral comments. guess, the question was 15% they thought was a little high. And then what was the justification? So, whether you have to answer that, that's up to you.
I think she answered that in the last meeting. That was discussed pretty good, wasn't it? I thought it was kicked around pretty well, answered at that point.
Keith?
That was my sentiments exactly. We discussed that, what the going rate for an assessor is in the state of Iowa, and we need to get her up to speed.
Okay, that should answer questions.
Can I make a comment? I would like to say that when Pat Hitch made a comment about had I stepped into the prior assessor's salary, if I had stepped into that salary of my predecessor, legitimately, this is where I would have been. I actually did that calculation just using a 3% average, and this is exactly where I would have been had I stepped into his salary. Number two, our association just did a survey. There are 37 assessors who intend to retire within the next 5 years.
Did I see some in the legislation, they're trying to share assessors?
They're proposing that they could share an assessor through a 28E agreement, which is an agreement between intergovernmental agencies. However, you would have to find an assessor willing to do that. Logistically, if I explain some things, you would see that it would be hard.
Aren't they trying to do that because they're gonna be short?
Yes, I believe so.
Well, if I remember right, Pat, didn't you say you got 3 applicants for a
We
job?
had 3 applicants at that time, yeah.
And one was
One was
basically.
even was looking at.
So, I mean, and how many did you say? 37?
37 plan to
37.
retire within the next 5 years.
Doesn't add up.
Are there any other comments? Okay. I guess we close the public hearing. And the time is, well, okay. Do we have any motions to approve the budget as published?
I'll make the motion.
Dennis has made a motion.
Seconded.
Jim has seconded. And I think this,
We're gonna roll call this.
you have to have a roll call for this one.
Pat,
Yes.
Dennis,
Yes.
Paul,
Aye.
Keith,
Aye.
Ben,
Aye.
Todd,
Aye.
James,
Aye.
Steve,
Aye?
Mike,
Aye.
Mark.
Aye.
That sounds like that's unanimous. Is there any other business?
I have none other than to mention that we will need to meet again for my reappointment, which is due to expire at the end of this year, but we cannot do the reappointment until after July 1 due to legislative changes.
Okay. With nothing else to discuss, it is adjournment time, and it looks like it's 10:14. So do we have to have a motion to
Consensus.
consensus? Meeting is over.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming. Thanks.
You send it back. Sure.
Oh, my goodness gracious.
Now we'll be moving back to,
Yes, I know.
Dave, are you still there?
she might have that shut off.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead. Oh, you don't? Seconded.
Yeah.
Here she comes.
How about now?
There you go.
There we go.
Thank you.
I'll let you have the floor again. Sorry to disrupt.
No need to apologize, thank you. So I believe I kind of got through the items that I wanted to make sure I highlighted. Basically, the bottom line is, it looks like the savings would merit taking some next steps to position the county to gain the authority to issue the refunding bond if the supervisor so choose. Like I said, we put a lot of information in front of you folks last time, and so we just wanted to make sure that we distilled this information down to the refinancing opportunity. I guess I'll leave it open for any questions the supervisors would have, but basically the next steps would be to set the date for it, to hold a public hearing. And I think the supervisors maybe have a decision to make as far as what role, if any, they would like DA to play in the transaction.
I have a question for you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You're working as the underwriter only and not as the municipal advisor, is that correct?
We would work as one or the other. The county could choose which capacity they would like us to operate in, but that's correct, we could not operate as both. We would have to be either a municipal advisor or an underwriter.
So to underwrite the bond, or to do this savings, you would need to work as the underwriter though, is that correct? Am I understanding that though, that way or not?
You need to have an underwriter, yes, and we can certainly fill that vacancy. I know that the county's also worked with Northland Securities in the past. I don't know where you're at as far as if you're continuing to work with them or not, or what role they're playing, but you could have, either of us could play either role. If you don't want a municipal advisor, you don't have to have one, but you would have to have an underwriter to underwrite the bond.
Thank you.
Yes.
Rachel, do you have any comments?
I don't,
Any suggestions?
I think it's big savings that we should take advantage of, but that's up to you guys.
Okay. Could we make a decision on this at a later date?
Nate, I have a question, I guess. So, once you have a public hearing, that's getting all of the legal work done, is that correct? So then, technically, they'd still have to say, yes, do it now after that, is that correct?
Correct, yeah, you could go through the process of setting the date for it, holding a public hearing, and you could take no more action at that point and not issue any bonds. The only thing the public hearing would do would be to give the county the authority to issue the bonds. So it would basically open up the option to do the transaction, but you would not be committed to doing anything at that point necessarily.
So I have a question for everybody. I guess I'm just wondering why we're not considering Northland for any of this as compared to what they've always done it in the past. I have no problem with these guys, but we seem to be kind of taking Northland out of the equation. I guess I'm just wondering why.
They could be our advisor.
They never have been. They've always been just our underwriter.
Well, they've been kind of an advisor.
No, they've never been paid as the advisor. They've always been the underwriter. I asked them specifically. I asked Heidi that specifically.
So we've never had an advisor?
Not according to her.
I would be willing to.
She said it has something, and Nate, maybe you can elaborate on this somewhat. This is a little bit above my head for me to explain it, but if you are the underwriter, there are, the way the the way the rules are wrote, so to speak, you can't even say it quite right. There are advisory things you can do, and you're not really considered the advisor, but it's just part of the underwriter role. I think that's the best way to explain it.
I can expand on that a little bit. So as an underwriter, the regulatory entities that we have to answer to, as an underwriter, they require us to always deal fairly. That's kind of the standard, the burden that an underwriter would have would be to deal fairly. A municipal advisor has a higher duty to the county, where it's a fiduciary duty, meaning the municipal advisor always has to put the county's best interest ahead of anything else, including their own interest. As an underwriter, we would naturally have, some interest that conflict, because as an underwriter, we are selling the bonds to investors. Well, investors want to have high interest rates. Obviously, the county wants to have low interest rates. So as an underwriter, there's kind of a natural tension there. And the regulatory authorities say we have to deal fairly. So, we have to balance what investors want, what interest rates they can bear with what, getting the best rates we can for the county. But as an underwriter, the duty is not a fiduciary duty. So it's kind of just a legal, the difference is kind of the legal wording of the duty, where as a municipal advisor, it's a stronger duty to the county.
So if we were to have a municipal advisor and these still need an underwriter in order to do that, then we're gonna have two entities that we're paying for their services. Would that be correct?
That'd be correct, yeah.
Okay.
If you wanted to retain Northland as a municipal advisor, I'm sure they would have a separate advisory fee. But like I said, the advantage to the county in that situation would be that you essentially have someone sitting on the same side of the negotiating table with you. When you deal with an underwriter directly, you're kind of sitting across the table from each other. When you have a municipal advisor, you have someone sitting in a chair next to you representing you in the county's best interest. So that's kind of the difference in the obligations that each of those roles would have.
Okay, thank you.
If you were to choose one, what would you rather be?
Are you asking me?
Yes.
Oh, it doesn't matter to us. If the county would like to have us underwrite bonds, I can say, in 2000, we were the #1 underwriter in the state. We underwrote the most municipal bond issues in the state. We had about 48% market share. And I think that probably speaks to our ability as an underwriter. We've been underwriting in the state since 1989, and been consistently #1 in the state. We do a lot of work with counties, a lot of work with cities across the state. So I think our underwriting platform would serve the county well. If it comes down to relationships, though, and you want us to be your municipal advisor and sit on the same side of the table with you and represent you in the county's best interest, we're also, we also play that role a lot across the state as well, for counties across the state.
I asked Heidi that question.
I know that's kind of a non-answer, but I think my answer is that we are the #1 underwriter in the state, and I think we would serve the county well in that role. But like I said, if you prefer to work with Northland as your underwriter, we're happy to represent you as your municipal advisor as well.
She said that they generally get paid. I just asked her, would you get paid more for underwriting or municipal advisor? And then that's when she explained that they've never been a municipal advisor to us. They've always just been an underwriter. They would rather be an underwriter because they get paid more to be an underwriter. So where I'm going with this is that, whether these guys or Northland do our underwriting, we've never paid for a municipal advisor. So I mean, is that something? Why do we want an extra expense of paying an advisor if we never have in the past? Maybe we do want one. I don't question, Mike?
Well, I just wondered who's got the better deal between the two?
That's what I
On
know.
this deal, or we don't have that answer, right?
I think we have to find that out. That's
Yeah, I
what
think
we're
that's
up
what we
to.
have to find out, is who's, now, your costs here, is that including your fees, the estimated savings, or is that?
Yeah, that would be net savings to the county. That would include cost of issuance, like paying a bond attorney. I think I actually included a fee for a municipal advisor in my numbers. And that would also include a fee for an underwriter as well.
I mean, the range is $100,000.
Those numbers that I'm providing are net savings to the county.
Yeah. But it, you know, it has a variance of almost $100,000, you know, estimated, so it's kind of hard to make a decision on that, you know what I mean?
Yeah, so
We never,
There's no, there's no, Scott's on the line too.
yeah, hey, so this is Scott Stevenson with Nate Summers here. I just wanted to kind of tack on to what Nate said, maybe help you a little bit with what you're trying to evaluate here and put it in terms maybe that are a little more understandable. So I think most of us probably in our lives have done some banking and got some amount of relationship with a bank that you traditionally work with, right? And you've got a comfort level, and that's all good and well. I think kind of if you equate what's going on here to your personal life, you know, you've always worked with Northland as your underwriter, and that's fine. And Northland may or may not have given you a good deal, and you may not really ever even know whether it's a good deal or not. We're not here to necessarily say they wouldn't or didn't. You know, that's certainly not our place to do that. What I think we're trying to, you know, lay out is, as a municipal advisor, or having a municipal advisor involved, you at least will know whether you're getting a good deal or not, right? We're professionals in the industry. We certainly, I think, are better equipped to identify what good results are, and that may mean just pushing whoever your underwriter is to get a better deal, or push for lower fees, or push for this, that, or the other thing. I think, you know, really what it positions the county to be able to do is better, negotiate a better deal for yourself. Maybe it's with the underwriter you've always worked with, maybe it's not. But whether it is or not, at least you got somebody on your side that, you know, probably has a better perspective of knowing a good deal from a bad one when they see it. So to the extent that's of value to you, I think that's what you're trying to evaluate. You know, your question effectively was, why would we bother paying a municipal advisor? We've never paid one before. That's my explanation, is just, I think when you get into municipal finance, a lot of folks in your position don't do it often enough, not as transparent, probably, maybe as some other things. And frankly, you know, even when you're working with your bank in your personal life, you always check around and know whether the bank's giving you a good market rate deal. Oftentimes you don't. Hiring a municipal advisor, effectively, that's what you're paying them to do, is ensure that you're getting a good deal. Does that make sense?
Yes. So the underwriting part of it would be more of would be based on the amount of funds that we are moving, and this is a question, would be based on the amount of funds that we're moving. A municipal advisor would be pretty much based on annual fee that we would pay the MA in order to do their services. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of. The MA fee isn't even annualized, though. It's more of a transactional situation. I mean, I think, you know, you could pay an annual retainer if you were wanting to have access to ask us questions on an ongoing basis, even when you weren't borrowing money. If you just wanted to throw some hypothetical things out there, have someone to bounce some ideas off of, and you could engage in some sort of retainer type circumstance. That's not really what's being proposed here today, though. What we're proposing here today is just a one-time fee. That is a flat fee, and that is effectively to serve as a municipal advisor on the street money transaction that's being discussed. If you decide to never talk to us again, you know, or Northland, whoever you would select to work with as your MA, it doesn't have any sort of ongoing relationship. But your description about the underwriting being predicated on the par amount, $17,500. And like Scott said,
That's
part
what
of that
it was.
value is, based on just resting on an $8.8 million financing. It's pretty easy to soak up cost savings of $17,500 by, getting interest rates, influencing interest rates to move by, a few hundredths of a percent is, on the interest rate is likely going to wind up covering the municipal advisor's fee.
Okay, that was my question, do you recoup your investment by doing that, by having a?
Yeah, it's not always a clear-cut situation where you can identify, specifically, hey, if you didn't have a municipal advisor, this would have been your outcome. You can't necessarily just compare it in an apples-to-apples comparison, but I guess the other thing I will tell you, having a municipal advisor involved does reduce some of the workload that the underwriter would experience otherwise. Therefore, you should expect to pay your underwriter less money in the circumstance where there's a municipal advisor involved compared to if there was not a municipal advisor involved.
Yeah, because they're probably doing
Some
something.
of the work in pursuing a credit rating and assembling the documents and reviewing the documents and all that kind of stuff the municipal advisor's doing is things that then the underwriter does not have to do. So it's not just a new fee that is, over and above what you would pay otherwise. It is somewhat offset by a lower underwriting cost almost always.
Okay. Okay, probably something,
We'll be able to check this out, apples to apples then, Rachel?
We can look at all that after.
Yes. We will keep in touch with you, then let you know as to how we want to proceed with this. Does that sound like a good idea?
You bet. Yeah, that's great.
I'm seeing 3 supervisors shake their head up and down, so I thank you for your information this morning, and we will research this out, and Rachel will be in touch with you.
Thank you for your time.
You almost have to get them the same day, then, don't you, if interest rates go up? One company's gonna look better than the other. If it goes, moves a little bit, one company's gonna really look good.
Yeah.
yeah, on that amount, like a couple hundredths of a percent could make a lot of difference.
So you almost have to give the same quote, the same day.
But, I do think this is something we should proceed on, before interest does go up.
Yep, we do.
Do it sooner than later,
Correct.
So,
Unless you want to set a hearing, or
can't we set a hearing? So if we have a set a hearing date, do we have to decide on the company, or can we set the hearing without deciding on the company?
well, we would be doing it with VA
With,
Davis.
with they would. Okay.
But again, you don't have to work on that date, or it isn't set in stone, right?
Right. You have your public hearings, the legal part of it is done. You guys still sitting.
And you can still have a change yet.
As far as what? Go ahead, sorry. Like you don't wanna do it after public hearing?
Correct.
Yes. That's
So
correct.
would we want to do that, set a date?
It's your business decision.
The only thing of it is what are we setting the amount for?
We wouldn't know, but
Can they both bring back a proposal next week?
I think this is their proposal here.
I think we get hold of Northwood and get some ideas from them, and get something that's down here that we can look at.
That's
from them.
what we were trying to do.
the estimated number here is, $95,000 apart.
It's
Is it
kind of,
something you wanna put on the agenda next week and maybe both of them can be on the line, or, I don't know, answer your questions?
Well, to have a public hearing, you gotta have a concrete number, if this is what you're gonna do.
that's kind of what I was hoping, that Heidi was gonna have something for us already that was comparable.
I just hate to cut them off since they've been around for.
That's the whole idea, but doing two is to get the best deal.
We do that next week, have them both here, or
I can contact both of them and see.
does that take, put it off too long and
We have to have the is the best deal.
Yeah. What do you think about the advisor? That one that's, you know,
It's just the same.
just,
An advisor is somebody that can help. As they said, it can raise and lower.
I think the advisor, what I would like about it is, we just tell him our questions, or why can't we get this or that, or whatever. He takes it to either Davison or Northland, and he or she, and does most of the legwork for us.
Sure. Somebody had to bring us up, didn't they? Did, David's, or the other company bring us about that there could be a big cost savings, or how did that start?
Northland originally did.
yeah,
So they did some advising there, didn't they?
well, they didn't do advising, they just did some research on the boundaries, you know, on what,
If they had to say, well, this is, we think you ought to refinance.
right. Because I thought they were at like 511,000. From what I.
Let's put it this way, to having an advisor, we've changed things from let's see, what was it? We went from 400 and some thousand to almost $500,000 in reduction in interest,
Yeah, but he's not showing that
or
here.
savings, I should say.
But he's not showing that here,
No,
where the other guy was, the other company was.
but we lowered, just by talking about doing this, we lowered interest.
But here's your,
We gained savings by just talking about doing this.
yeah,
You remember what that was, top of our head, Rachel?
I thought it was 500
Like
level.
400,000 to 500,000.
Yes.
Right.
I mean,
And now
just
this company-
talking, doing this.
I know, but now
So this
company-
is a savings by doing this.
Oh, yeah. But this company's proposing 358 to 453, so now we're going back down.
Hey folks, this is Nate Summers, I'm actually still on the line.
Oh, okay.
If I can just jump in, I will say interest rates have gone up
Oh, they
in
have?
the last month, so just
Okay.
bear that in mind if you're comparing, I don't know what dates the proposals are, but the numbers in front of you are from yesterday, I believe.
Okay.
So they're the most up to date, and interest rates have been going up over the past month, so just bear that in mind if you're comparing proposals.
Okay. We still have to compare apples to apples, and it would be nice to have both of you on the line with your proposal next, would that be possible next week?
Yeah, we certainly can do that. I think one of the, in the same vein as what Nate just described, is, the interest rates are gonna be subject to movement, so we can even propose something next week, but that's not the deal you're gonna get. And the reason that's not the deal you're gonna get is because interest rates are gonna change. They may go up, they may go down. It could be a better deal than even what we talk about next week, but I guess one item I want to point out to you folks is when you're evaluating this, the interest rates are what really drive savings for the most part. And both Northland and ourselves are not going to be able to commit to anything until you're in a position to lock in the financing, and that's not true today, and it won't be true next week either. So I think that's one thing I want to just point out is if you're evaluating and differentiating based on that, it's a bit of a fool's errand in the sense that, whatever we say next week is going to be 100% subject to change, besides fees. I mean, now fees is a different story. Ask for a commitment on what fees are going to be, and that is perfectly reasonable, something that we both, I'm sure, would be more than willing and able to commit to. So,
Okay,
That's basically the number we need, probably.
yep.
Cost of service and, yeah.
Anyways, we will try and get together then next Tuesday's meeting and resolve this.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is Dave online?
I think so.
We've got some people that have been waiting a long time.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Dave is on the line too, so,
David is on the line too.
or at least a Dave is. A Dave is, whether it's hardcore or not. Dave, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you
That's
hear me?
David.
Yep.
David, you have the floor.
Well, I guess one thing I did accomplish this week, we're getting a map of where the utilities are at over there. So that's in process. It'd be easier to see that now than find out that we made a mistake where we've got setting. Other than that, I'm not real sure how to proceed here in a fair manner and legal manner. I'm wondering maybe if we shouldn't assign a project manager. I don't, I would do it, but I'm gonna need some guidance. Obviously, I don't have a lot of experience with building projects other than the nuts and bolts part of it. So, I guess that's what I need to say. I'll let somebody else talk for a while.
Dave, did you say that the guy that designed the plans is also online?
Jim, are you here? Jim McAvoy?
That's the
I am, yeah.
clarity. So my question for you is the design that we have in front of us, I actually didn't see it, but Dave said that you'd sign them. As far as code is concerned, we're locked into having, this meets the parameters of having to have an engineer design this with a signature. So your signature, does that suffice for Iowa Code 26?
We have a full engineering staff at corporate, and if you, I guess you're probably either under the 2015 or the 2018 building code. We would just need to know that, and then yes, we can design it according to those parameters.
So what we have in front of us might not actually be that, there might be changes? And I realize that's a difficult question to answer too, but I just want to make sure, I just need to know if we need to hire an engineer to sign these things, or if your company has done that for us already.
We can do that, yeah.
Okay.
That would be included. Obviously, we got to decide on your final details, but this preliminary plan is pricing in commercial stamp plans, correct?
Okay. Any questions for the builder yet? 'Cause I have some questions to these.
Basically, what you were asking about as an architect, right?
Architect or a licensed engineer.
Yeah. And they are capable of doing that. Okay. Our next, now you suggested as putting it in as a complete building.
What do you mean?
Well, this was a shell, basically, and we were gonna go, and if we're gonna go with a complete building, there's more money.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
what changes?
So I had some, in regards, I guess this is related to that, I have some questions for these people as far as what their needs are as far as home health and for emergency management. Sheriff, were you gonna be part of this, or are you just kind of checking things? Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait and visit with Todd in the meetings.
Okay. So as far as home health, what are your needs as far as if we're gonna construct a building? And I also wanna ask a question, it's COVID related, so my question to you is how can you justify why Mitchell County needs to build a building for you related to COVID? Know where I'm going with that?
So there's a few different reasons. During this COVID, so we really like storing a stockpile. And so we kind of at the moment have storage of gowns, everything that we need to have in our stockpile, kind of scattered all over. We have a storage shed. I believe EMA has a storage shed as well. And then we have been also storing at the fire station. We've kind of had to move it all over. So we really have a good location to store our stockpile. And we're finding out with COVID, it's not as easy to get your hands on gloves and masks and gowns because you can't order it. So we need to have a place where we can store this stuff when it's needed. We have had, fortunately, we have a place that we're able to do the drive-through clinics, but this time, but we would like to be able, if this is going to be built, we'd like to be able to do our drive-through testing, vaccination clinics in the future. We do flu clinics every year. It'd be nice if we could be using that instead of being outside.
I'd like to add to this, the stockpile that we have of PPE is not going to go anywhere. We need to keep that stockpile around if there is another pandemic. I hope there isn't anytime soon, to be able to have a stockpile to give to places that need it, because it is hard to come by PPE. We've had to ask for donations early on when this first came out, when the pandemic started, because we didn't have a stockpile. And so now what we have currently that's stored, I mean, we had hand sanitizer in the sheriff's office, we have a bunch of supplies at the OFD, our 2 storage sheds, 2 rooms in our current county services full of PPE. So it's scattered all over. Another thing too, our generator, it's stored across town right now. So getting to the generator, hooking it up, we'd have to have someone go hook it up, and then hook it up to our building, where our generator could be stored in-house, or close by, instead of a 1.5 miles away as well too, so.
And we could get rid of our storage unit out there.
In the event of a tornado or something, and the trees and the poles and wires are all down, and the generator's out there,
That's not very convenient.
it isn't gonna work real well getting the power going here.
Dave is one of, I mean, Dave and Chris, I think, are the ones that have hooked it up and know where it's at, have a key to the shed. If either of them are gone, I mean, I can't hook up a trailer.
That's why you're looking at a stationary generator though too.
Correct.
And that
That's a
generator
year away.
that they have on hand, we could use wherever in the county. You know, we could pull that to St. Ansgar, Stacyville, Riceville, wherever, and utilize that resource, but like myself, they're paying $600 a year on storage. Emergency management would be willing to pay rent on this storage for my trailers, my truck. I'm looking at getting lighting equipment. I'm looking at purchasing some generators with lighting equipment on it. I want to store maybe in some fire departments around the county, kind of not put all my eggs in one basket, spread it out. So, you know, we could utilize those lighting equipment for a natural disaster, a crime scene. Fire department might have something overnight big enough that they need lighting on the other side of the incident, you know. Security is huge. We need to look at that too, so. The lighting equipment itself is probably, you know, squared 6 by 6. I'd probably have one set in this new shed that you guys are looking at proposing to build, and then storing it around the other parts of the fire departments. But yeah, I think I know emergency management needs to grow a little bit more than what I've got for assets. The 2 trailers I got is a 2005 and a 2015, I believe. Sitting outdoors a couple of years ago when I was working with Ray, it incurred some water damage. 911 is looking to put $85,000, $9,000 of radio equipment in the comm trailer that I have. It needs to go somewhere secure, not just sitting outdoors. It's a target. I probably shouldn't have said that on public.
Well, and also they're sitting out there by the salt shed.
Exactly.
And
As far as
3 of
storage,
us know what salt does to that stuff, but anyways, go ahead, Dan.
as far as storage, then we're looking at cold storage. We don't need, do not need it heated. Okay, that would be great.
My trailers have been sitting on gravel. If it's gravelled on my portion, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Cold.
Just indoors would be huge.
I think.
Yes,
Dave-
my truck, yeah. I've been through 2 batteries since I've taken this spot. Thankfully, Cooper's have replaced it and stood behind it, yeah, it's tough freezing up batteries and stuff.
I think one thing that I'd like to add though too is, for our flu vaccines, we don't need a heat. For people to drive through, it's normally and we were able to do that outside, but if we were to have another pandemic or move our COVID testing now at this time, or giving vaccines to an unheated shed, we would need something heated, as well too. So again, that's not happening right now, and flu clinics are fine without the heat, but just thinking future-wise though too, if something were to happen.
And I believe David would probably like to have his plow truck and his tractor heated, and he also needs something to work on, heated to work on them.
You could have a couple of the bays heated and the rest of the cold storage,
What are the chances of you needing the truck and one of your trailers hooked up for a period of time? I don't think that'll fit in a 30-footer.
Hooked up, pretty slim.
Pretty slim.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take me but 5 minutes to hook up a trailer to that truck. So that's really not an issue.
Both trailers are how long?
Around 21, 22 feet,
So they won't even sit in there.
butt to butt, or
No.
whatever.
So no matter what we build this building at, it will never be big enough.
But if we could get them a permanent generator, you could access their mobile generator, correct?
Correct. What's the dimensions of the proposed plan?
30 deep by, I think it was
80 long.
80, 30 by 80, 10-foot doors. So that was my next question.
10 foot high?
10-foot high doors.
Oh, that wouldn't work for me then.
I think they're 12, on what I read.
Are they 12 foot
I
high
think at
doors?
least 12, yeah.
Okay,
And that was to access the trailers.
Right.
that's correct, yeah.
Over
10
the
foot width,
range.
12 foot height.
10 wide, 12 high, yeah,
Yes.
to get the trailers. Because that was my question too, why are the sidewalls gonna be so high? And it's for the trailers.
And maybe that's something we could, does it all have to be the same size? Could a portion of it be for trailers and the other portion be for,
I don't know.
if you're gonna heat a portion of it, that a truck can slide in and, you're gonna conserve space, maybe some dollars, I don't know.
Gonna increase your construction costs. with
Exactly.
Elevation.
Exactly.
So you might save on heating costs.
Right.
Too.
Higher up we go, the more shelving we can make too, that things that don't get used very often, but get them off the floor.
Right.
Right now they're all on the floor.
One nice thing about the heated area that David may need probably would be storage above that area.
Mhm.
Of course, I don't know how their rafters are built in that shed too. That's another question. On that area, how the rafters are built would be how we would utilize storage up there too.
Generally, they use truss rafters and there's no storage up above.
And you can get them, like my garage, I put a floor up, and so I just had, but that's been 15 years ago, and it wasn't that big a price difference.
It wasn't.
Right.
No, it's just, I think just the angle of your, how they were made.
So we're looking at David, Home Health, and EMS, looking at 3 groups that are gonna need this, is that correct?
I think
We'll
we
all
talked
get
about
to
the
utilize.
assessors.
The assessors do?
Assessor stuff, okay?
Well, where David is trying to get the assessor's vehicles out of here, and whether they're inside or parked outside by that building, he's wanting them out of this lot. So it makes it easier for him to clean this lot after a snowstorm. We're correct, David?
Yes, that's the case.
Now, Jim, you had mentioned, I think, a week or 2 ago about COVID-19 money to be used.
That's why I
That would
generated
help
my
pay
question
for it.
that way, yes.
Yep.
Now,
And we
is
did-
that usable? Is it available to be used like that?
They said that we were, and I checked with Shannon, anyway, she sent me an email, and it's gonna be deposited probably this week. If I remember right, it was 51,000, it's not as much as I thought it was gonna be. And, is she gonna get hold of you, did she?
Yeah, it's 51,118.82.
So we budgeted 100, we've got, and what they said was that money will be decided by us. We get to decide, we could put a culvert out in the road if we wanted to. It's our decision. But they recommended, since it's a COVID thing, we should probably think about COVID as we spend it. That, to me,
That would make this
we asked,
COVID.
that's right, we are helping for a future problem by helping these people out by generating it towards building a building that they could actually use.
And you know, we are encouraged by the state to do a stockpile, but we've never really done it because we haven't really had space to put it. And so this would really solve this problem, to be able to have, because like we said, it's impossible to order supplies right now with COVID going on, and we need it. And so if we had that place to store that, that wouldn't be an issue, if this would happen again.
And it's just, you know, this is just like our own checkbooks at home as far as if we're gonna put up a garage too. Yeah, let's build this enormous thing, but whether it's taxpayers' money or our checkbook at home, we have to be reasonable. Cost is always something that you gotta need to look at, so there's a thing as far as what people want and what people need, and my thought is, what do you people need? I mean, can you get your cold storage stuff in one of these stalls, like a 12 by 30 stall? Can you fit everything in there? Your trailers, it sounds like one stall's not gonna work for that. David, he's got his things going on where he has he's got a lot of stuff, and he needs to be able to work on that on possibly a weekly basis, daily basis. I mean, so I don't want to overbuild, and actually you never overbuild, but there's cost.
We have to manipulate the unit, the storage areas, so that we utilize the most of the shed.
Yes.
Being that we're having a high shed, hopefully we'll have some upstairs storage, which would be for your masks and personal protection equipment. But we have to design it right off the bat right.
It has 2 drive-through bays for, and be able to just we heat those 2 bays. That part of it would be heated. He'd pretty much use it mostly all the time, except for when you guys need it, it would be your drive-through thing. But you'd also have your cold storage area, that's yours. Just a thought.
And that's primarily what we're thinking.
Yeah,
too. We don't
outside of
need
a
it.
pandemic, it's not gonna be needed on a daily basis. Yeah, just seasonal.
So no matter how we do this, it's just gonna have to be made, we're gonna have to make it work.
Yeah, and that's just like Chris's trailers. You gotta remember, we got, I believe, in between doors is 2 foot. Can Chris adjust his 2 trailers and they don't have to be directly going out the door? I mean, you backed and pulled trailers and fire trucks in and out. You know, I mean, you could pull them in and tighten them together and still have plenty of room to walk around. I mean, I got this 2 foot section in my 3rd stall, and I've got a snow blower and all kind, you know, stuff that fits in between there. So I think we can make it work, can't we, Chris? I mean,
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree too. And, that's part of making it work.
Okay.
The size of the building was determined by Dave and you guys, I assume, right? You guys kind of talked about it.
Well, if that's what the contractor threw out there,
Yeah.
estimated.
It sounds big, 30 by 80. It's never big enough. I always thought when I built my 30 by 64 shed, I'll never fill it. You can't walk through it.
I think we're at the mercy of the footprint itself as to how it sets and where utilities are running and that kind of thing too, though, but
As to, you're gonna have requirements for electric, lights, how you wanna heat it, all this stuff's gotta be decided. David and I were trying to figure this out, and I finally just shook my head and said, that's it. Because every time I open my mouth up, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching.
Even if you put up the shed and then.
You gotta look at how you're gonna heat it. You're gonna have hanging heat from the ceiling, you're gonna have it in the floor.
I can tell you, Hagman's building that we're using now, at 319 Pine Street, it's all heated in the floor and it keeps that room, that building so warm. There's no other heat besides that floor heat, and it's very
amazing,
warm.
yeah.
You know, so you go with one other than the other.
You're talking about where we got our shots?
Yeah.
Where we do vaccines, yeah.
Yes, Jim and I remember that as a different building.
Believe me, I'm a believer in floor heat, but I don't know how much of it you wanna.
The only problem with floor heat, you don't have very fast recovery, you know. You cool that room off by having all the doors open, it takes quite a while to heat back up. For forced air, you get recovery faster, but that's the only downside.
We have other questions as to water, sewer, I mean.
I think if we do anything like what we're doing now, it would be nice to have a bathroom there. We, have to give vaccines and people are sitting there for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. They need to use the restroom. If we're off-site, we can't. I mean, I know our building's close by, but still, for others to utilize that too. I'm just thinking of what we're going through right now.
And I think we talked about, Dave, should Dave have, working on something, should he have to come all the way to the courthouse, go to the bathroom? I think we could,
rough something in.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be night,
I don't think it has to be fancy,
No.
and it does not have to be men, women, it's gonna,
Right.
Yep.
something that's,
Yeah, I would agree.
do what you need to do.
Yep.
As long as these people can build a building with the architect permit or whatever the provenance, we can do it, and they'll build it probably however we want it, but we have to figure out how we want it, and then how to get all you entities together.
If there's anything else that you can think of in regards to what we discussed, we discussed how much room you think you need, that kind of thing. Put something together so that we can look at it, and from what I gather, you're requesting a drive-through once a year. We know what David needs. You're requesting one stall is cold storage, and you're requesting stall and a half for your trailers.
And I wouldn't necessarily say a full stall, like depending on how we could stack it, if we could use it, upstairs or those types of things too. This could be stackable.
David's heated area could have a storage unit up above. Again, it might not be a full 8-foot high, but it would
Jim,
be storage.
2 trailers and a pickup truck would be for emergency management, and then if I can sneak some, I could probably store some of that equipment, generators and that kind of thing in one of the trailers to save room.
There'd be a truck also?
The EMA truck,
So,
yeah.
so you're looking at 2 stalls.
Minimum, depending on, 2 stalls might take up by 2 trailers.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
But you'd have
unless we could
storage
sneak something between the 2.
Yeah,
Pick
if
up.
we've got the assessors, what I'm looking at here, I don't think we're already out of room.
If we do it locally, then we gotta get an engineer's stamp.
I don't remember how that reads exactly.
I thought it was over 100.
Anything over 100,000, we need to have an architect.
And it has to go out for, I believe, bids.
That would cut out the local contractors.
It reads something to that effect, and I left it in there, but it has something that says, about local, I don't know.
Like, get them a shot.
Yes,
Also.
you bet.
Like, these guys out, but I like to go local.
But do they have the architect stamp? That's what we're working with. It's gotta be
Staples.
Yeah. I mean, if you only have so much land to work with, you can only build a shed this big, you know, I think that, you know, that's the ideal place for it. I mean, I think it's just gonna, you know, build it and make it work, you know. I mean, it's a lot more than what you got now, so, you know.
Yeah, anything is better than what we have now.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea.
And like I said, we could get rid of our storage units. I don't know about Chris. Would you be able to get rid of your storage unit then?
Like, how big are your storage units and how full are
I don't even know.
Ours is full.
Ours, yeah, ours is
From front to
completely
back.
full.
It has PPE in it.
Which is why we're
10 by
storing
12, I
that fire
believe.
they? 10
department.
by 12.
Yeah, McKinley's there.
McKinley's out there.
Yep.
So you have two of them full. You know, your shed too can have shelving on the back wall or on the
Yeah.
side wall. You gotta
I mean,
have
because
lighting wall.
majority of it's in cardboard boxes,
Cardboard
you know, because they can
boxes,
sit on the
gallons,
shelf.
gloves, masks, yeah. Even if the trailer doesn't take the full bay, you could have a pallet in the corner and have a pallet,
Right.
or 2 pallets, whatever.
I guess truthfully, I guess they're gonna have to get together with all three, or David, Chris.
Somebody,
you guys.
somebody on the supervisor's board want to be on this committee or two, or how does that work?
I mean, I could be, I know a lot about construction, build houses, everything.
Okay, cause David and I were working on it, and David would have an idea, and I'd have an idea, and I'd like this. I finally got to the point where, cause every time I opened my mouth, it was cha-ching, and Dave, I don't need that. And, well, yeah, if you would like to be on there,
I think the idea behind it all is to, for me anyway, is to get my stuff protected, get it secured, that kind of thing. Rome wasn't built in a day. We can
no, this.
rough this in, get it up, and then maybe the next year add, or do something with it, you know.
You know, even if you have your plumbing roughed in for your bathroom, it doesn't have to.
I definitely think
be
Dave
like, you
needs something for that plow truck.
Yes.
And get that out of the weather. I need something for my EMA truck to be able to respond. Public health needs something, you know, instead of storing everything at the fairgrounds, oh, you're out of there now, and then spreading things out all across the county. I mean, it's,
I think my personal feeling is, I'd like to see you guys all get together. I'd like to see, I'm not sure who it is, whether it be Dave or whoever, get some local bids. And if we're sticking with 30 by 80 building, right now we got an 85.5 on it from Cleary. Mark mentioned something about, does that fill the grounds out? Could we go bigger? You know, see, I think we need to make the size, and then we start deciding what goes where and how, you know what I'm saying? Because if they start needing all this, all of a sudden we need a 60 by 100 or something, you know what I'm saying?
That's the problem.
I think we get together, get some bids, local, and if we can't get anything lower than 85.5, if we get somebody to come in at 70, let's throw another rafter up and let's go another 10 feet, you know what I'm saying? You already got the wall. If we have to add one rafter and go another 10 feet or whatever, a little more tin, we can go bigger, but I think we need to get some pricing on, or the locals, and if it's 30 by 80, there you go, get together, and you might be moving stuff around, you know, the first 6 months, you know, just to make it where it's feasible for everybody.
I suppose too, we need to visit with the city and look at easements and that kind of thing as well.
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, that's what David has been
doing that.
Yeah, I talked to Fuzz here last fall, but, you know, I don't know the procedure, or the specifics on that, if there's a minimum or a maximum requirement they need, or to make this work. Right.
That's correct, Todd, as far as what you say, but we do have to keep in mind that Iowa Code 26, and whether it be Mark Walk that advises us as far as what we're doing or not, because it does specifically say that engineer or architect has to design it if it's over, I think it was 100,000.
Yep.
And if we're gonna start changing things, then that's gonna affect that, because the engineer's gonna only sign what they've designed. And so if Mark Walk, my thought is he's the first one that we need to check, because he represents us. If it's not something that he does, I know ISAC also has legal representation as far as some stuff that they'll do. So, I mean, so if you're on this committee, we can't forget that code.
Yeah.
We can't just go out there and build this thing, so.
Yeah, and again, I'm going the other way. I'm saying if somebody local comes in and, no, I understand that
Yeah.
staying under the 100,000.
Yeah, I think we should try to stay under just, you get architect's fees and, you're talking. That escalates, right.
But I mean, this is
There's
85.
$60,000 in architectural fees that you've already spent on that building.
This is 80,000, but that does not include the bathroom, and it does not include the partition, so you can heat it. Doesn't include the concrete on the outside of it. So I mean, we have 80,000 here, but we're over 100,000 easily.
Yep.
Easily. So.
Depends on if you build your building and put a wall in later, and it's like,
Yeah, I mean, it's not insulated. So
Right.
we're easily over 100,000.
you don't do it all at once. You just do the building.
That code does say something in regards to that you can't piecemeal it. It says, now I don't know how long, I would think that, if you do something years down the road, that there again, that's gonna be a lawyer thing that he's gonna.
Yeah,
have
we
to-
find out what we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that's what Dave was thinking too. We'll get the building and then we'll worry about, having the plumbing roughed in and worry about insulating, putting up a wall down the road,
If that works, that's would be great.
That would be,
Yep.
Anyways,
check that out,
Yeah.
make sure we're doing it.
we're just as confused as when we started.
Well, you gotta start though.
Yeah, exactly.
You gotta start, so.
Got the color?
No.
Oh,
I guess,
you don't like red?
well, we have a really nice looking courthouse, and the services building looks nice. I really don't want people driving down the road, and the first thing they see is that, as compared to the courthouse. I mean, so, that's my deal.
I just, your meeting's gone long enough, but real quickly, I support these folks getting the building, if that's what you choose to do, for efficiency, for serving all the folks in the county, they know where to go. Not a lot of them know where 319 Pine Street is currently, so, if it matters to you, I think they need this building over there, Dave certainly does. And I don't think you'll have another opportunity, I'm hoping, to build it cheaper than you currently can with the COVID-19 funding.
Yeah.
Thank you, that's all I have.
All right, well, everybody get together and rub heads and come up with ideas, and we'll see how it works. David and I have been bumping heads for how long, David? I'm just as confused now as it was when we started. So.
I agree.
The more we dug into it, the more confused we got. And then the rules and regulations and what you have to, with the architect.
We'll have to figure that out.
So anyways, thank you. Hopefully we've got everything discussed on this building for today. We can move on then for this meeting.
I should've.
Meetings attended? Anybody have any meetings? Jim?
No.
Mike?
Yeah, I have a county conservation meeting Sunday. They were talking about their 5-year plan, for what they all want to do. Laura, so we have a meeting at 1 o'clock today, correct?
No, the 3rd. March 3rd, next week. 1 o'clock next week.
From my freedom, I thought it was today. Okay, March 3rd, sorry.
That's okay.
5-year plan of what they wanna do over the next 5 years. Some of the, I don't know, they'd like to hard surface some roads and new playground equipment, 4 parks, electrical upgrades, maybe some solar, and new bathroom and shower in 2 parks, river improvements, and bank stabilization. And they got a lot. I think some of the things they should maybe focus on, and they talked about, is they have some electrical problems at Halverson. Last year there were wires melding and whatever, you know, because campers are getting bigger, and they must have some bad connections there too. Because wires normally don't meld unless you're not making a good connection, you know. The breakers should trip if you're overloaded. And that wasn't happening, so. But some of that was some ice that came up and knocked some of the posts over. It must have cracked some wires and whatever. So but I think they're gonna look into getting that all checked out this spring. And yeah, they got a lot of plans, but a big price tag too. So it's all kind of in the, but they have this book. Anybody wishes to look at it, share it with you guys. So
Okay.
we have a little bit of stuff in there, but that's the only meeting I had.
I had a 911, Mitchell County 911 meeting. It was February 17th at 7. Called the meeting to order, had a quorum. I'm going to do this quick. Discussed the proposed budget for 21-22. Had a roll call on the proposed budget. We had an election of board chairman, Kurt Angel. Election of board vice chair was Pat Hitch. We appointed Chris Olson as the coordinator, and his wage is $28.39. Discuss some old business, discuss some new business. Making this quick. Then later that night at 8 o'clock, we had the Mitchell County Emergency Management meeting. Quorum determined, approved the January 30th of 2020 meeting minutes, discussed the budget, had a vote on the budget, all ayes. Had the election of the Mitchell County EMA chairman, commission chairman, which is the sheriff. Vice chair was me. Again, appointment of the Mitchell County EMA coordinator and wage, and then it's Chris Olson again, and it's $28.39. Discussed the old business, discussed the pandemic, and went to new business, discussed coalition with 12 counties on emergency management, and cooperation with grants, and discussed ESF, discussed working with the National Weather Service during the bad weather. Anyways, I had at the end with some comments from the EMA Commission. I guess we didn't have that. Anyways, that meeting was over. So, Mark, did you have a meeting?
Just a quick one on Heartland Insurance. Talked to the lady. They've hadn't had no big problems since the winter's been pretty mild. Couple of slips and trips. She's gonna come up and meet us, go over our policy with us this spring to see if we can add or subtract anything. She's excited to meet me, and I said, well, you're not getting much, so don't get too excited. That's it.
Todd? I had an economic development meeting. That money that we had turned over to them, that 19,000, the remaining of that TIF is already being worked with the advertisements. Tracy went to the 38th floor, which is 2 local grads that started this a year ago, this advertising, and so she thought she'd give those two a try at the website, designing the website and stuff, and they suggested that pay them like half right now, and then maybe, but that does say in their, the sheet there, they gave it, in the balance in 30 days, so that we want to, just kind of keep them honest, and I think they'll do really well. They're good kids. We hired Tracy as an intern for Tony until further notice. She'll be now working 4 days, as long as she can stay busy, which with the advertisement, with the website and everything, she said, you gave me the okay to do that, I'll be busy one day doing that, so. And, new housing project discussed. And all I wrote down was, ideas, and I'm not sure, they want us to get together and throw some ideas together, how we feel, how during our campaigns, or how people kind of wanted, how they felt. They're gonna get together, and then we'll just pull our ideas together and see what they wanna do. But I don't know how that works. Do we have to, is it,
I was gonna say, if we could do
schedule
this,
it?
we could do it at an end of a meeting, on a day, on a Tuesday, would be the best. Because
Just
we're
put it
all
on
here.
the agenda
Right,
then. Okay. How do you guys feel? Do you want a week to think about a few ideas of, I mean, I got a letter yesterday from a local that says they feel we should back right out of the housing TIF money, and where they're going with it is we need industry in town. So they feel that that's where we should be looking at, which I'm okay with that too. I think the economic commissioner will have to have a big part of that, and right now we don't have one other than, again, Tracy, one person in the office. So I don't know how we want to approach that between now and, well, she's pregnant, she's gonna have a baby in June, she's got her plate full, but we are gonna put it out, the job out there, and we were thinking maybe July or August. Part of it is because we want to give Tracy some time. She won't, you can't see either way if she's interested or not, I mean, with the new baby and there, so.
So to answer a couple of your questions that had to do with the letter and our role, I guess I would like to see us come up with, that one night they called out as far as 5 ideas, and it ended up stopping.
Oh, that cool.
I know. So I think that was a legitimate thing where maybe it doesn't need to be 5, but there should maybe be 3 things, or as many as you think, that we actually write down ourselves so that we can discuss amongst ourselves, that you feel are pertinent for economic development. And then in regards to the letter focusing on industry and not so much on housing, personally I think that you can do both at the same time. I don't really want to get rid of the housing in it, but I want some improvements done to it, but I don't want to get rid of it. The industry thing, I want us to be polite at this. I think to recruit industry, you need to be out there doing it. So we maybe possibly need to be more aggressive at recruiting industry than what has happened in the past. So I feel that both things can be done at the same time. It's just, the housing was maybe easy because it was just, a program was set up, sign the check, we're done. Where the industry thing is more difficult. We need to, but they need to work on that to make that happen.
Yeah, and you know, Tracy was just there last night, and she totally understands, you know, people bring up Brenda Dreyer's name all the time, you know, those people don't come around every day. She had some ties before she even came to Osage, and from what I understand, come to find out, she knew people down at Des Moines, you know, at the Capitol. She knew people in Minneapolis, and so they say we were pretty lucky with her that she knew these people and would go and visit with them and talk about industry. So.
But before we jump into a new program, would it be worth waiting until they get the new person hired? Because maybe now that Brenda Dreyer may come along and we already got this set new program going, and this next person comes in and says, oh, we should have done this and this and this.
Yeah, you're gonna be the director.
Yeah,
Give
so
her
let's do this, like, they were the EDC's they just want 2 or 3 ideas. That's basically what they're gonna do, for the next month. And then, if we could do it at one of our next meetings, throw 1, 2, 3 ideas together, we'll compare, if we have some of the same, scratch them out, and then I'll take the remaining ones to the EDC meeting, and
There won't be, you aren't going to resolve anything, 2 or 3 recommendations.
but we don't want to resolve anything. Basically what I'm, you know, because we want to, like Mark said, wait until we do get a new director, but at least we have some ideas out there that are written down, if you guys feel that would work. I mean.
Starting to build something now.
Yeah.
I mean, at least get some ideas happening.
Because I can tell you on their end, they're making adjustments on the housing right now, some, because they kind of feel that we maybe need to make it a little stiffer, or, you know, throw the ideas I mentioned to them about some of the incentives, maybe not quite as right off the bat, you know, spec home, because we're getting a lot of, I listen to a lot of the spec home things, and some, they weren't, everybody kind of agrees it wasn't really done, but they had to start somewhere. So we'll just move forward, and if you guys want to do that, throw a couple ideas down in a couple weeks.
Couple pages. Serious, I'm not smiling.
Yeah, and that's what you feel, yeah.
So, I mean, that's what it's about. That's where we need to start, and then we need to get together, or I'll take them to the EDC meeting and go from there.
I'm for that.
Okay. But 2 weeks, guys get a couple things written down, next couple weeks, then Rachel in a couple weeks put that down, and
March 9th.
Anyway, that's our meeting attended.
Yep.
Kirkwood Court, monthly report. I'm Stacy Olson, Kirkwood Court, District Court in Bluff County, State. Do hereby certify the following is true and correct statement of fees collected by me in my office for the month ending January 31st of 2021. And I'm just going to give the total of $1,709.12. So noted. Manure management plan update.
Wilt Fincher Farm, 3151 500th Street in McIntyre. site, 3650 Walnut Avenue, Osage. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. Fitzmaurice, Finisher Farm, 1923 480th Street, Sneemskird. And Heeman West Finisher Farm, 4758 Shadow Avenue, McIntyre.
Okay, and Sheriff, you got a comment?
I have no comment.
Okay, I guess with no other public in here other than us, our meeting is over with. Wishful thinking, you have the assessor's budget hearing clear to the bottom.